Welcome to Previously on X-Men, the podcast that looks back on X-Men comics, movies, shows, characters, and more. You can find out more about this show and others like it on our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. Share your thoughts on this and upcoming episodes by following us on Twitter at Previously on X, and please rate, subscribe, and share this show wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Hilary Gunning, and this week we have our very first ever guest host. Filling in for Eric Mickles, we have Nick from over on Comic Book Coffee Break. Hi, Nick.
Hey, what's up?
Well, we're doing a podcast.
No, I know. I'm aware of that.
Is what we're doing.
I'm honored that you asked me to fill in for my brother in podcasting, Eric, known online as Dust vs. Tweak Mickles. I'm also pleased that you asked me to do this after you finish the Sentinel Spotlight, because I don't think I really have anything to say about the Sentinels.
Well, neither did I, Nick, actually. So, no, that was a fun one. But I'm going to ask you in this episode,
yes,
if you would, can you do your very best Eric Mickles impression?
I think you know the answer to that, Hilary, because I spent almost 6 years doing a weekly podcast with Eric, including most recently Comic Book Coffee Break,
I've heard of that.
Right here on the Radio Meanwhile network. So yeah, I'm fully prepared to just do this as myself or go full method and be in character as Eric.
What if we had just opened it and acted like you just were Eric? Do you think the listeners would know?
I like to think that I could have sold it until we really got to the emotion that he has wrapped up in the X-Men, because there's no selling the true deep emotion. You can't fake that kind of passion is the thing.
Oh, no, you can't fake it.
No.
Okay, well, this week, as promised, we are going to be talking about the 2020 film, The New Mutants. 2020 is a year that will live in infamy.
Yes.
Because of this film.
Right, of course. Yeah.
So, would you mind telling us the kind of the background of this? Can you do that as our co-host?
I would love to. First off, let's talk comic books. That's my catchphrase on Comic Book Coffee Break.
First up, let's talk comics.
No, I just say, let's talk comics.
I've seen the show,
yeah.
And if you had asked me if I knew your catchphrase, I would have said, you have a catchphrase?
That's how we always start, but it's neither here nor there. Obviously, it didn't make an impression on you. Let's get into it. Let's get into the comic books. So I had read the first volume of New Mutants forever ago, and I read the next couple when you asked me to fill in this week. So it's fresh in my mind. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the early days. So the New Mutants spun out of the mainline X-Men title at the insistence of editor Jim Shooter. He was just saying we need to expand this franchise a little bit more. Let's do New Mutants. Chris Claremont, who was writing the mainline title at the time, wasn't really interested, and I guess Shooter was kind of like, look, it's happening, so you can do it or not, and so that's kind of how it happened here. But they debuted in graphic novel form in the pages of a book that Marvel did called Marvel Graphic Novel. This was number 4, came out in 1982, so the first several issues are released as their own separate graphic novel, if that makes sense.
The debut of New Mutants
was in the pages of this sort of, kind of an umbrella title of Marvel graphic novels.
Okay.
So it was written by Chris Claremont, and the art was by Bob McLeod. And Bob McLeod stayed on the book for a while, then the art passed it to Sal Buscema, and then eventually Bill Sienkiewicz. And this is, I feel like if you're picturing the New Mutants comic books, you're picturing the Bill Sienkiewicz era, because it goes crazy. I mean, it goes from looking like, the contemporary X-Men book of the time to just this really, occasionally abstract, real sort of scratchy drawn comic. It's completely different.
Yeah, see, I've read the very beginning of the New Mutants, but I didn't get anywhere. I didn't get anywhere with it.
Yeah.
So I'm not familiar with any of that stuff.
Well, I think the very start, I remember the reason why I didn't continue on when I started it years ago was because to me it did sort of feel like the X-Men without the X-Men, and I just wasn't about that. I mean, Xavier's around, but I just feel like the new characters, you don't really get much of a transition. It's just sort of like, bam, all new characters. And it just wasn't really gelling for me. But I'm glad that I went back and picked it up, because the Sienkiewicz era it's insane, but it's really interesting. And reading it, I couldn't really tell if, the writing was changing to meet the art, or if the art just makes the writing feel like the art is so overpowering that it's bringing it to it.
Well, I think what we've kind of figured out from the various interviews that we've done is that it just depends on the artist and the writer. It could be either way. It just depends.
Yeah.
On who's doing it.
Yeah, well, and I think I mean, it had to be this collaboration just like clicked and they just ran with it, because if you asked me to describe the New Mutants in a word, it would be weird, and I think that's really, hitting its stride here in the early days. The Demon Bear saga is, I don't know, about 15 issues in. A lot of the basis for the movie is drawing from.
Is there a bear in this movie?
Yes, Hilary. There's a bear and some confusing bear analogies that don't always go with each other or with the end game. So that's a thing that happens. The original lineup of the New Mutants in the comics was Cannonball, Mirage, Wolfsbane, and Sunspot, who we see in this movie, and then Karma, who is not in the movie.
I don't remember Karma.
Well, she's not in the movie. So.
No, but I mean from the book that I read.
I think she phases out pretty early, but she is in that. If you read like the graphic novel and the first collected issues of that run, then we were read Karma.
I remember Wolfsbane.
Yeah.
I remember Danny.
Yeah.
It's possible those are the only two I remember.
Well, that makes sense. Ileana/Magic was a later addition, and she came along when the roster expanded to include Cypher, Magma, and Warlock. So that's when it sort of fills out comic book wise, and then goes from there.
Do you know what's going on in the X-Men at this time?
See, this is where you need an Eric Mickles, because 80s X-Men is not my strong suit.
Nor mine.
Okay.
Okay, well that's the comics. Let's get into the movie.
All right.
I remember when they first started talking about this, and it felt like we were going to get the New Mutants movie at some point. Before years and years and years passed. And they put out that trailer that was like a horror movie, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
I was really looking forward to this movie.
Yeah.
And then they just scrapped it, I guess.
Well, I think the Disney merger really screwed everything up, but I think the idea of doing a New Mutants is actually a lot older even than the last couple of years when it really came up. I think, if I remember right, when X-Men 3 was wrapping, and I think really it was more like, are we going to get these people to come back for X-Men 4? And so they were thinking about ways to expand. Because you remember, that was the time when they were talking about doing like a Magneto origin movie.
Yeah.
All sorts of things that were like, maybe if we don't need all of these marquee cast members, we can keep the franchise going. And I remember Laura Shula Donner at that time was saying she was hopeful for X-Men 4, but was also floating the idea of New Mutants. And I don't really know how seriously that ever was discussed in 2009, or if that was just sort of a, maybe if we don't get the original cast, we go New Mutants.
So that's pretty early.
Yeah, and it did just sort of bounce around for a while. And actually, some of the New Mutants were used in some of the other films. So like Days of Future Past, for example, when you're seeing the future stuff, you do get a glimpse of Blink, Warpath, and actually Sunspot, who's in this movie. Yeah,
that's true. I guess when you're seeing them, it doesn't feel like, oh, look, it's the New Mutants.
Right.
It's just like among the many cameos of mutants that you end up seeing and things like that.
It's not a very purposeful, look, here's a pod of New Mutants.
Right.
But when you sort of look at the cast, you'd say, oh, okay, these are.
Yeah.
But Sunspot in that was played by a different actor. Adam Canto is who played him there. He did not come back for this, obviously. I think the movie really was picking up steam when director Josh Boone was interested in it in 2014. And this was, so I'm a librarian, that's my day job. And The Fault in Our Stars by John Green was like the it book for YA at this time.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it remains a perennial favorite that people are checking out. But Josh Boone directed that movie, The Fault in Our Stars, the adaptation of it. And I think when there was an idea that he was interested in doing that, they were like, yes, let's make that happen. And it was announced a long time ago. I want to say 2015. They were saying New Mutants with Josh Boone is happening.
Yeah, see, I never pay attention to the details. I'm just like, ooh, movie.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take it. This one, I mean, as you alluded to earlier, it was like, when is this ever going to happen, and what version of it are we ever going to see?
Yeah, well, I mean, Eric and I have been talking. I feel like every time we have a movie episode, we talk about and then New Mutants is going to happen or not happen, or maybe it'll happen, and if it happens, we'll do a podcast.
Yeah, exactly. I remember in early 2020, I think we were seeing Birds of Prey, a big group of us, and I took a picture of you and Eric by the New Mutants poster when it was supposed to be coming out.
It was going to come out.
In April, in theaters, after years of saying this was going to happen. And supposedly, in the early days, James McAvoy and Alexandra Shipp were going to be reprising their roles as Professor X and Storm.
That's weird.
Well, yes and no. I mean, not McAvoy, but Xavier is still the head of the school and still a pretty big part of New Mutants for quite a while in the run until there's a change in that later on. But
yeah, I guess it just, I don't know. I don't know if it's how the movie panned out, but it just has that kind of outside feel.
Does. Well, I think that's the thing. That's probably why it happened, because there just really is not a way, I think, to work in an Xavier and a Storm.
I think it would just feel completely different. Like, I think they would either feel weirdly out of place, or it would just shift the tone of
exactly.
the movie.
I think you have to fundamentally change the movie to make that happen. Character-wise, it makes sense, because Storm is also a pretty big player in the New Mutants early on. She and Illyana have a whole miniseries that's just the two of them kind of chilling in limbo. So it does make sense, but
because of limbo.
Because of limbo,
but it also is like in limbo.
I like it. Let's talk cast, because I think this is actually a pretty strong cast. What do you think?
Yeah, we've got the 5 main characters.
It's a very self-contained. It feels almost like a bottle episode.
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I was saying about having Xavier and Storm in it.
Yeah,
that it's like it bursts the bubble.
Yeah.
And, like, you just have to do a completely different plot if you were going to have them attached.
Even just the star power alone,
right,
would just kind of throw off the vibe.
It's got to have the pod, which I just think works better.
No, I think you're right. I think that's well suited to the characters, and I think it's the thing that makes the movie work in ways that you don't expect it to.
Okay, so let's talk casting. So we have the 5 main characters of this movie, and they've sort of combined some groupings of the New Mutants that we usually have. So we have Danny, who's played by Blue Hunt, who I didn't recognize at all. Has she been doing other things that you know of?
She's been around. I don't think I've seen her in anything else.
Okay. She struck me as, we'll talk about the other ones that felt more like people you might be familiar with. She struck me as like she's sort of the main character of the movie. It felt a little bit like they were bringing in kind of an unknown to be that kind of lens character rather than like stunt casting it.
Which has some history, in the X-Men franchise, because Hugh Jackman was not really a well-known name when Wolverine, debuted in the first X-Men movie either.
Yeah, not well-known off of Broadway.
Yeah, right. But when you consider that he's playing against like Patrick Stewart and Halle Berry and stuff, it's kind of a similar thing here where, the most fresh-faced one is the lens.
Yeah. Then we've got Wolfsbane, Rain, and that was Maisie Williams, who was just coming out of Game of Thrones.
Right. So, like, at that point, she's, like, on fire.
So she's huge.
Right.
She's funny. I've kept seeing her. I've never seen a second of Game of Thrones, but I keep seeing her pop in on things. I'm pretty sure she's in an arc on Doctor Who.
Oh.
And I've seen her, I don't know, just like, she's just sort of around. I feel like it's probably just because she's on Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
And so she's being stunt cast from that.
Yeah.
But I'm just so completely unfamiliar that it feels like she's just this random person who just like follows me.
You have to kind of wonder, like, had the movie really come out when it was meant to, like right on the heels of Game of Thrones, would it have been a lot more like Reign centric,
Yeah.
I just don't know.
Well, it's a similar thing because the guy who's Sam.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Charlie Heaton.
Yes.
He's the guy from Stranger Things.
Yeah.
And he's the guy who jumps out the most to me because I watched Stranger Things years later than it actually came out. And so it kind of works out for me. But yeah, it's a similar thing where like clearly he was cast because of Stranger Things.
Right.
And probably this Maisie Williams was cast because of Game of Thrones.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
But like that's
it's so
water
far,
under the bridge.
It changes so quickly when you're saying 2018, then 2019, then 2020.
I still don't understand why it took so long to get this movie out. Like, I just don't get it. Like, they had a trailer.
My recollection of it was that trailer came out, and people really liked just what you said, that horror version of it.
It was so cool!
I know. I think that people really liked that, and they were like, oh, crap, it is not a horror movie.
Oh, I see.
Hold on. Everyone shut up. We have to go back and turn this into a horror movie.
Oh, so is this that thing where they were going to change it, and then they didn't change it?
They were going to change it, and then they kept, like, giving it new dates, and then, okay, now this is going to interfere with Deadpool 2, this is going to interfere with Dark Phoenix, and so it gets pushed and pushed and pushed right up to Mickey Mouse. So
I complain about... Like, okay, I like the MCU.
Yes.
But the thing I complain about the MCU is how structured everything is and
Yes.
how like perfect everything is. But then I think about the X-Men universe.
Yeah.
And it's just this crap all the time.
I know.
It's just studios making stupid decisions and like planning going awry. And
Yeah.
it's just like, maybe you need somebody to just really like be super anal about it.
I'll tell you what, I mean, I remember watching X-Men 2000 as if it were yesterday. I mean, I love that movie. I was obsessed with that movie. I did not know the backstage shenanigans that happened until I started listening to this podcast.
I don't think I knew about them until I started saying the podcast.
The only one that I could remember was I remember Bryan Singer ditching Last Stand to go to Superman Returns. That's the only thing I remember as far as like
Yeah, I think I did know that
a
at the
mess
time.
in the background. But
Yeah.
yes, you're exactly right. I mean, everything they do is just kind of like
Yeah, I don't get it. And then some movies, it's like, yeah, I can see that. And then some
Yeah.
movies, like the first X-Men movies,
Yeah.
I think excellent.
Oh, yeah.
And so I don't. It's just funny that
Yeah.
that crazy stuff happens.
Yeah, well, New Mutants is certainly a victim of that because like I said,
I think New Mutants has to be like the pinnacle of that stuff.
Oh,
just
yes.
like the whole way it happened is
Yeah.
just crazy. And it kind of it shows up. Like we'll talk about later the
Yeah.
plot and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But you can see exactly what happened in the movie.
Yeah.
Like you can map
Yeah.
it right out. So anyway, so we've talked about Cannonball. We've talked about Danny and Rain. We
Yes.
also have Ileana,
yes,
Rasputin, who is...
Magic, Anna Taylor-Joy.
No, I'm just trying to think of... I can't think of his name.
Colossus.
Colossus. Ileana Rasputin, Colossus' sister
Right.
from the comics.
Yeah.
I don't think that comes into play at all
I
in
was
the
just
movie.
gonna say I knew that. I knew that about the character, but
Yeah.
I don't remember them ever saying like, "So how's your brother?"
Which I think
You know?
is, honestly, I think is fine because Ileana just has like a crazy story.
Oh, yes.
Like she's got plenty to
Oh,
fill
yes.
the space, so you
Yeah.
don't need to say anything about her brother.
Yeah.
But anyway, she's played by Anna Taylor-Joy. She plays Ileana. She is in the Queen's Gambit right now.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, she's like on fire. Like she's the one.
Seems like it. I've
you
seen
know?
her in something else too.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't
I
think
mean,
what
of
it...
course, like Split and Glass and everything.
Oh, she was the one in Split?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I didn't make that
Yeah.
connection at all.
Yeah, and she very much is like the marquee name in this cast now. That's why I checked this out from the library on DVD. And the posing of the cast is clearly all still shots that they put into one picture. She is front and center, and like Maisie Williams and the others are way far back.
Well,
It's
that's like you
magic.
just on your show. Nick is also on a show with the Radio Meanwhile Network, 9021 Here We Go.
I am. Thank
I didn't
you for
mention
the plug,
that.
Hillary.
Well, I didn't mention it
Wow.
at the beginning, but it is now relevant because I was just going to say you just did an episode recently
Yeah.
with the movie. It's our listeners are going to be like, "What are you talking about?" There's a movie from the early 2000s something.
Yeah.
Who Wants to Marry Ryan
Oh,
Banks?
right. I Want to
And this
Marry
is a
Ryan
similar.
Banks, yes.
I Want to Marry Ryan Banks. This is
Yes.
a similar situation because when it came out, there are two actors in it.
Right.
One of them.
I know where you're going. Yeah.
One of them is I forgot his
Jason
name.
Priestley.
Jason Priestley.
Yeah.
Who is from 90210, which
Yes,
is why
that's
you were doing
we did
it on the
for Valentine's
podcast.
Day. Yes.
And the other one is I've also forgotten his
Bradley
name.
Cooper.
The other one is
Yeah.
Bradley Cooper.
Just before he exploded.
Like right before. So this
Yeah.
is probably right after Alias when he's like the nerdy best friend
Right. Yeah.
on that for a while.
Yeah.
And so all of the ads are
Yes.
like Jason Priestley and this other guy, I
Right,
guess. And
right.
now
And Jason
if you
Priestley's
try to
friend.
get the DVD because you're getting DVDs still obviously,
Yeah.
it's all like this thing that Bradley
No,
Cooper's in.
You're exactly right. Jason Priestley's not even on the cover. It's like just Bradley Cooper. And yes, it's the same thing with New Mutants.
Yep.
Anna Taylor-Joy is front and center, and everybody else is kind of like, oh, and
That's
there's
funny.
other
At
cast
least she has
members
better
too.
hair in this than
She does.
than the Queen's
Yeah,
Gambit.
she's got great hair.
So that's her.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna say Adon Kanto. No, that's the who
yeah.
it was before.
Yes.
Okay, so Sunspot, we've got Henry Zaga,
Yeah.
who I kind of recognized, but I don't know what I would have seen him in.
Yeah, nothing I was familiar with, but yeah, he's
He's sort of
definitely
like
out there.
the
Yeah.
stud
Yeah,
guy,
yeah.
you know, there's
Yeah.
not a whole lot going on.
Do you remember the drama with this?
Was
this
there
casting?
drama? No.
There was drama with this because Sunspot in the comics he's Afro-Brazilian, and that heritage is very clear in the way he's drawn and the way he's depicted in the comics.
Uh-huh.
And they did not go that route this way.
They just went like white Brazilian.
Yes. And
well, why would they do that?
I don't know. And to make matters worse, like if you read anything like Josh Boone responding to that, he responds like a massive tool. He's just kind of like, well, I just wanted to find the best person for the... And it's like,
whatever.
Dude, just... So, I mean, it is... When you read the comics and then you watch the show, I mean, it's noticeable, the change.
What a strange thing to do.
I don't know.
But again, I mean, I'm just gonna... It's another, like, it was years ago.
Yeah.
When I guess you could get away with that crap.
I guess. I
guess it sort
know.
of feels like it's just been the last couple years that it's been like, no, for
I
real.
I mean,
straight up, don't do that crap.
Yeah, because when you think about, I mean, what do we have here? I mean, this wrapped filming, in 2017? So, I mean, he was probably cast in 2015, 2016. It is a very different...
That's not that long ago, but it just feels like
in regards to that issue, I feel like what was
the casting
acceptable.
Thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yep.
I mean, how long ago was it that everyone was freaking out about John Boyega in Star Wars?
I know.
Like, how dare a black man be in Star Wars?
Yep.
I mean, that was probably around the same time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway. So that's him. He's in this. He does a fine job,
he does.
I guess, whatever.
It's not a knock against the actor. It's just a weird choice.
It's funny to hear that the director was so like, I want the right guy, because like he was fine.
It's true.
I mean, it's not like it's this deep character.
Right.
It's just like he's just some stud.
He's the bro. Yeah,
he's the bro, exactly.
The bro.
How many? Anyway,
there's bros.
We can move on from this. So that's that. That's the main cast.
Yeah, those are the New Mutants.
The New Mutants.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a combination of eras, I guess, of the New Mutants. Then we have the only other person we see, right, is the Doctor.
No, well, I mean, you see Danny's dad.
And like and
that's you also
true.
see like the evil priest.
Okay, so when we start out, we have like the outside world.
Yeah.
Once we're in the bubble, we basically just see the mutants and Dr. Reyes, and then you have sort of like the visions of things. But like as far as characters goes, it's basically just that. So Dr. Reyes is Alice Braga.
Yeah.
Rosario Dawson was a plan for that role
for a long time, which is kind of an odd, because I mean at this point she would have already been involved as night nurse in the Marvel Netflix shows as well. So, but I sort of feel like having Rosario Dawson's star power here would have thrown things off a little bit.
Yeah, I think I particularly liked Dr. Reyes's casting, and I'm not really sure precisely what it is, but I feel like her casting more than anyone else's really works for this movie.
I agree, because the way she's depicted in this movie does not exactly gel with the way that she's written in the comics. Mm-hmm. And so I think what Alice Braga is able to do here is really like ride this fine line that kind of leaves things ambiguous.
Yeah. I think that she just has kind of she sells the like caring but slightly distant kind of like therapist vibe really well. And there's just something kind of mysterious about her that she's just sort of closed off. I don't know. I think she just does a really good job.
I think she avoids being a cliche. I think that's a role
that's true.
There's very clear archetypes for that. And I think she had sort of elements of a lot of different archetypes, but she wasn't just like the person who's the adult who's there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we'll kind of get into it with the plot and everything, but there are just choices that she makes that I think are very fascinating.
Yeah.
Here's something that I actually didn't know. Marilyn Manson is in this movie.
Great.
You get these visions of men in like
smiling.
I mean, there's like weird spindly men. They're like monster men with this face mask, this smiley face mask.
Yeah.
Voiced by Marilyn Manson. Okay. Now, I didn't know that they had voices. I'm pretty sure they just like scream and stuff, but I mean, I guess
who do you call but Marilyn Manson when you need that, right?
Marilyn Manson. So he's in this too.
Okay.
Congratulations.
You know, one of the things that was talked about and didn't actually happen, and I think it was because of the Disney acquisition to sort of putting an end to this, but there were talks of actually having Sinister appear in some sort of post-credit scene. How do you feel about Sinister? Because I can't remember. Are you
I don't love him.
Pro-con? Okay,
don't
so
love
not a fan of
Mr. Sinister.
No, I don't think that any like deals were signed. I don't think this was ever set in stone. But the pretty widely accepted casting for this. Have you heard this? Do you know this?
they cast him?
No,
cast
I
Sinister?
don't think they ever like signed it down, but like what they were heading towards.
I can't think of a single person that I would cast as Mr. Sinister.
How does the name John Hamm strike you?
Oh my gosh.
Right?
That's perfect.
I would be down for a John Hamm Sinister showing up.
He would be good at that.
I like it. I
would never have thought about that.
Yeah.
That like weird like buttoned up thing.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever be able to look at him the same again.
It's true. It's true. Because, I mean, you do get a tease here, and I think there was a thought that, like, whatever the next phase for the X-Men was, that Sinister was finally going to be a part of that. And that's a pretty widely accepted, rumor that's where they were headed.
Well, you can't branch out too much with villains. You really have to be able to just keep going back to Magneto if you want to be taken seriously in this world.
Darn that Disney acquisition, right?
I guess.
Coming at this point.
Yeah.
You know what's funny? On the DVD, I don't know how many people actually like saw the DVD of this, but the back of the DVD says, "From the Marvel comic." Like, that's it. Like, it's an awkward way to,
I do remember it feeling like
that.
they were weirdly trying to steer it away from being an X-Men thing.
Yeah.
Because it was that weird, like, in-between time.
Right.
But, like, I also felt, I mean, several times during the movie's progression.
Yes.
I have felt like they are no more.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's the last X-Men movie.
Yeah.
We're done now.
Yeah.
And so this was, when they were first coming out with this, that's where I was. Like, I was like, there aren't any X-Men movies.
Mm-hmm.
And so Logan happening felt to me like, I'm going to say nail in the coffin. That makes it sound like it was bad.
Right.
I liked the movie.
Right.
But it just felt like it was like, no, for real, we're done.
Yeah.
And so, like...
At least with that era, that was a very clear, like, the door is closed.
Yeah, that's how I felt about it.
Well, I think you guys were really smart to put it at this point in the rotation rather than sticking it after Dark Phoenix, even though technically it came out after, because Eric made the point back in the Logan episode that, like, all these reshoots that were talked about for years never happened.
Yeah.
So the movie that you get is the movie that you would have gotten right after Logan, because they never went back and did any of the reshoots they were talking about. So, like, this really is where it fits.
Yeah. Well, and it's got scenes from Logan in it.
Yeah.
So they're tied together.
Which, again, does make it confusing about where we're supposed to put this movie in the timeline, which I feel like...
Yes, that would just break Eric's brain.
I know.
I mean, that's a nice thing.
I know.
It's a good thing he's not here right now, because we would spend the next 45 minutes trying to work that out.
He'd have, like, one of those pull-down dry erase boards where he'd be, like, writing out.
Yeah.
But, yeah, so I don't know. I mean, that does make it a little bit weird, so,
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Finally, it hits theaters, it hits, DVDs, and here we go.
Yeah, so the version we got is the version directed by Josh Boone, written by Josh Boone and Nate Lee, and the music is by Mark Snow.
Yeah.
And I have to say it like that because that is how it is credited on the X-Files.
Yes.
Which is what I know Mark Snow from.
Yeah.
And every time that I see him listed anywhere, he did music for Smallville.
Yes, he did.
Which, this is an interesting thing, though, because I feel like every single time I have seen something, I've been like, this is Mark Snow. And then it's been like, this is Mark Snow.
Yeah.
This, I would never in a million years have guessed that this music was Mark Snow.
I don't know Mark Snow like you do, but I can tell you that I watched this movie twice, and I tend to, like, enjoy and notice movie scores. This one left no impact on me at all.
Yeah. Which, I mean, honestly, from Mark Snow, that wouldn't be that surprising to me.
Okay.
He does have, distinctive things, but it's a lot more, I think, about setting ambiance and stuff. So you're not going to get, like, themes or, like, anything jumping out like a John Williams or something.
Yeah.
But I feel like you can... There are things, there's
hallmarks,
tones and like styles. I feel like I can hear it in him.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that it was him before I listened to it.
Yeah.
And so I listened for it and I couldn't hear
Nothing.
it.
Okay.
It was crazy. And also, I mean, not to just harp on this Mark Snow situation, but I mean, for the like eerie thing that they're doing in this movie, that's just like Mark Snow's wheelhouse.
Oh, yeah.
But he doesn't do the things.
Huh.
He doesn't do the things.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyway.
Okay.
So anyway, Eric always does the money stuff and like all of this. So why don't you read that for us?
Can I tell you something? After doing, 6 years of podcasts with Eric, that's just stuff that he knows.
I know.
I don't understand Like, I could call him, I could cold call him right now and be like, hey, when did Jaws 3 come out and how much money did it make? Yeah. And he'd be like, Jaws 3, geez. And he'd just rattle it off.
He just knows. It's very weird.
It's the weirdest skill.
Yeah. It's his mutant power.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, I can tell you that IMDb lists this movie with a $67 million budget, but other places are saying more like 80, so probably somewhere in the middle.
Why would IMDb lie to us?
I don't know. Worldwide box office is at $44 million, and as at our time of recording, there's another $3 million in home video sales, and that is significantly less than what was spent on it. So it is a box office bomb.
I mean, is it a box office anything?
No, I mean, technically it is. Disney was very committed to, like, no, I want to know who signed this deal.
Did they release it in theaters?
They did. They did release it in theaters.
In 2020?
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah. They were like, well, nobody saw the New Mutants. And it's like, yeah, duh. No one's left their house in 6 months. Oh, my gosh. But anyway, that's where it stands. The Rotten Tomato score at time of recording was 35 for critics. 56% for viewers, the public, average Joes.
I guess I'm
like you and me.
Pretty surprised about that. I wonder how much the
years of bad PR.
Yes, the years of exactly. How much that affected the scores, because I mean, there are obvious weaknesses in this movie, but I don't think it's a bad movie. I'm surprised that it's as low as it is. Anyway, we can get. There's never been a time where somebody's been like, this movie's been delayed for 3 years, and it's amazing. Like that's but like for no
never
reason.
Happened. No, I know. Yeah, I know.
Anyway,
yeah.
Let's get into the movie
right away. I have to tell you that we just see 20th Century Studios.
Yes,
this is the first. I think it's the first time at an X-Men film you're not seeing 20th Century Fox.
Is that true? Even Logan?
I don't think... Yeah, Logan was
Well, the Logan... I watched the black and white one, and they didn't have it on that one. Oh, the noir version.
Cool.
Yeah, they just have
speaking of things that Eric would have a problem with emotionally, not seeing that Fox in there would have really put him in a bad mood right from the start.
Well, I mean, they haven't been doing the X-Fade in the last several. Yeah. So we've been missing it anyway, so I didn't really care.
Okay. All right.
About that one.
All right.
But it starts with Danny doing kind of a voiceover about bears.
yes, and I struggled. I rewound it to try to figure out, like, what are you talking about?
It's the two bears. She's talking. Okay. Does she say it? Does she say the whole thing, or does she save until the end?
No, I think she does. She says that, like, one is good and one is bad.
Yeah, that's right. Because we don't get like the punchline or whatever until the end. Yes. But yeah, there's two bears. In each of us, and one is good and one is bad.
Yes. Right? Yes, but like then there's also the demon bear later. So okay.
That's a whole other.
We're leaving it separate.
So anyway, she's doing this voiceover about bears.
Yes.
And we see she is woken up out of sleep in like a
panic. I mean, things are going crazy.
Yeah, so she wakes up to disaster is happening, and her dad is trying to get her out of there.
Yes.
They're coming or whatever. We have to go.
Yeah.
So she runs with her dad. They run. You can see sort of things in the background happening. Yeah. Is there a helicopter? I feel like there was a helicopter.
The imagery is very confusing to follow. I think it's well done because you're hearing like a growling and a chase sound. You're seeing like a storm. None of the images that you're seeing are clear, but there's like explosions and things.
Yeah,
I mean, it's everywhere.
Hard to figure out exactly what's happening. Yeah. But the point is that it's a disaster, and they have to leave because they're all gonna die or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So they run into the woods. Her dad hides her behind a tree.
Yeah.
And then he's going to go back.
Right.
And help people or something. And she doesn't want him to go, but he goes. And then, tragically, she's hiding behind the tree.
Yeah.
And then her dad comes flying by, and he is dead.
Denzo. Yeah.
He's dead.
Yes.
So, is that the very last thing we see in that?
Well, no. I mean, the dad dies, and then she's kind of running through the woods, and she does like a collapse back into the woods, and then it's a jump cut too.
That's right. Okay, so she runs. Or whatever. She sees him die, and then she runs. Then she wakes up in the facility. We have a lot of Danny waking up in this movie.
We sure do.
Which, is probably on purpose.
Yeah.
So anyway, she wakes up, and she's in a hospital, and so you sort of get that moment of like, the disaster's over, and she's safe now.
Yeah.
But she's all alone.
Yeah.
And she is handcuffed to the bed.
To the hospital bed, yes.
My favorite thing about this
is
I feel like you see this a lot in movies.
Yeah.
And they're just handcuffed to the bed and like, oh no, what do I do? And then you just sort of like wait until someone comes in.
Right.
She just gets out of the bed and drags the bed all around the room. And it's like they're on wheels, of course. Just like, you're not...
Well, remember, she's got a creeper from the start. She sees up in the...
does she see her right away?
Yes, right in the grate above her. She sees... Well, I think she sees her. I mean, we definitely
see
her.
You're right, because when she wakes up, she's on her back and she sees...
Yeah.
She sees in the grate.
And you don't know who it is.
Right.
Like, it's not
It's
clear.
just a face, and it's a little creepy.
It's definitely creepy.
And then she, like, skitters away. She drags around the bed, trying to figure out what's going on. She sees a camera.
Yeah.
And, someone's watching her who, get whatever. You guys have seen the movie.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm talking about.
Camera.
So she knows someone's watching her.
Yes.
And so she's got to, get their attention.
I mean, you got creepy vent person. You've got the camera. Yeah.
So she finally is talking to this camera.
Yeah.
And then we get a voice over the intercom or something saying,
there are two bears. No, that's a different voiceover.
No, the bears are over.
Sorry.
Voiceover from...
Dr. Reyes.
Dr. Reyes.
Yes.
She is coming and chill out, Danny, I'm coming. Mm-hmm. So then she shows up at the door and we see her. Don't we see her like come in? Like we see through the window. We see her come in and like unlock doors and like all this stuff. It's all the feel of this first scene is very eerie, but it's also very like starkly realistic.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's all, I don't know, it's very interesting. So she finally comes in and you get this moment of feeling like this is a good person because she has sort of a in control of the situation.
She doesn't feel manipulative.
No, yeah, she feels like a genuine, like, we can trust this person. Yeah. But the situation is weird. Yeah. So what the heck?
Yeah.
But she, talks Danny down. She says, I'm so sorry, Danny. Your entire family and your whole reservation, they're all dead.
Right.
Because a tornado landed.
And right away, Danny's like, no, there's some kind of attack happening. It wasn't
because she heard like the growling and all that. I mean, by the end of the thing, after her dad died, she's being chased by something. Like,
but you don't really see it. It's very Star Trek V. You don't
That's
see
true. You don't see it, but I mean,
her.
like she's being chased by
definitely
like
no
a
question.
creature or
no
something.
Question. Yep.
So anyway, she doesn't buy that, but they just kind of move on.
Yes, and I'm struck right away because going into this, I really kind of thought that we were going to skirt around much use of like X-Men stuff, right? I mean, did you think that?
Huh. I don't know. I mean, I guess it did stand out when they did it. Yeah. But I don't know what I was expecting.
Because in this early scene, Reyes gives her this necklace that her father gave her that has a little bear on it. And that's sort of with her the whole time. And then she goes on to explain like what mutants are and all that. And she has a very cryptic line early on where she says, "The man I work for has a way of recognizing mutants."
And so you think Cerebro.
Yes.
The very first thing you think is she's working, like this is some weird facility that like funnels kids to Xavier. Right. Because she says like he has like an institution where, does she say school? I don't remember.
I think she does. I think it's very clear what we're talking about.
Yeah, she's seen, I don't know if the character is trying to trick them into thinking it's Xavier or if that's more for the audience.
I don't know either.
But the characters do seem to assume that. Yeah. So yeah, that's an interesting moment. I was just thinking something. Because when she comes in and she first mentions mutants, she asks if she knows what mutants are. Yeah, right. And she seems to know. Like, she's not like, oh yeah, mutants, of course. But like, there's recognition. Yeah. So that's where we are in this moment, which I guess makes sense if it's after the events of Logan. Yeah, but aren't mutants kind of done in Logan? I mean, isn't that sort of the... So, I think they're still trying to find new mutants. You know what I think it might be?
Yeah, I said the title. Yeah.
I'm thinking about the timeline now.
Yes.
I wonder if New Mutants is before Logan. Okay. But it's still talking about the facility.
In that zone.
In Logan.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I do, yeah, because Logan sort of feels like it's its own little, like, divergent path on a tree. And it seems like maybe New Mutants is connected to Logan specifically. Yeah. On that offshoot of the X-Men franchise. So, I don't know.
But I mean, it has to be because like they don't know the ins and outs, but they would have to have heard that the X-Men are all dead now if it was after.
Right, and they don't act like that.
Yeah.
They don't act like that.
So I think it's got to be before Logan.
Yeah. There was a lot of chatter, like in between saying that they were going to do reshoots and the actual release that X-23, that Laura was actually going to be put into this movie. I don't think that was ever official. I think that was just kind of like a hope that people had, because there was a lot of talk about using that character again in the future.
That doesn't make any sense. That would have been a bad move.
Yeah.
She's not related to... She's an X-Men character.
Right. Yeah.
New Mutants are not X-Men characters in my mind.
Whoa.
I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
I mean, they're X-Men... I view them as X-Men universe.
Yeah.
But I don't think of them as X-Men characters.
All right.
Anyway.
So you think of them as like Morlocks. On the level of a Morlock.
Yes, I do. That is exactly how I view them.
Okay.
So we have this setup, and like Reyes gets Danny settled in her room.
Yeah.
Which is sort of like a mix between a dorm room and like a prison cell.
I mean, it all has, to me, it feels like a very 1950s hospital kind of vibe.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a mental hospital, but like it just has that 50s vibe about it.
Yeah. It does. Yeah, I do get it. I do get kind of a mental hospital.
Well, I guess it depends where you are.
Vibe from it.
But yeah. Okay.
But anyway, so that's basically that.
Yeah.
Danny seems to feel pretty okay. Like, she's sad,
yeah,
obviously,
I mean, considering
but she's like, I guess I'm here. I'm not being murdered.
That she's basically the Punisher at this point. She's the only one and anyone she's ever met that's still alive. But she seems fine. She's fine.
So that ends.
Yeah.
Next thing we see is group therapy.
Okay, this is one thing that irritates me a little bit about this movie. It's because we do a lot of like 1980s teen movie tropes.
Yeah.
For seemingly no reason.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that it kind of starts in this group therapy
I
scene.
didn't think about that, but yeah, you're right.
There's a blatant one later on, but I think the group therapy scene here is really where it starts.
Well, it's kind of like a Girl Interrupted kind of thing.
Yeah. And so I
guess that's not an 80s movie.
No, it's not 80s, but like there are 80s versions of that. Like you picture Ali Sheedy sitting at this group therapy session here, but that doesn't really go anywhere, and that kind of irritates me.
That's true.
Because they're not really doing a take on that, and I don't really understand the references.
Here's what I think about that.
Okay.
I wonder if they're not references. It's just, I have a group of teens.
Yeah.
And it's just sort of like, I don't know if it's accidental or if it's just a little lazy and just kind of like leaning into obvious tropes to just get the movie through.
Yeah. Well,
but it doesn't feel to me like purposeful references, because the style of the movie is not 80s. It's not carefree in any way.
I guess we'll save it until we get to the point that
I know
that
what you're
really
talking about. But I know what you're talking about. I just don't think it's on purpose.
Could be.
I don't think it's on purpose.
I just think the characterizations are much more patterned on like what you get out of a Brat Pack kind of scenario, rather than the characters that you see in the comics. And I just don't really understand what they're doing with that.
Yeah, I put to you that it is nothing.
Nothing. Okay.
That is what I suggest. Anyway, so they're in this group therapy session.
Yeah.
And they're starting. I mean, you just hear Dr. Reyes doing these kind of inane group therapy kinds of things.
Yeah.
Which, as I'm thinking about it just now, all of her therapy stuff is very stupid.
Yeah.
And now I'm just sort of like, well, she's not really.
No.
She's just filling time.
Yeah, right, yeah.
She's not trying to accomplish anything. Yeah. So that kind of excuses it in my brain. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so this is our first time seeing the other people in this facility.
Yeah.
And that is who we said earlier. We've got Ileana and Rain and Sam and the other guy.
Yeah.
Roberto.
Sunspot.
Roberto.
Yeah.
Roberto. And they're all sullenly sitting in a circle.
Mm-hmm. Ileana, right from the start, has the Lockheed puppet, which...
Yes, which was such an interesting thing. I mean, she sells it very well.
Yeah.
I don't know why they put Lockheed with her.
He's with her in the New Mutant comics.
But he's Kitty's.
Well, I know Kitty's also part of the early... She's not a member of the New Mutants, but she ends up like crossing over with them a lot more. And Ileana just does have Lockheed for a significant amount of time. But like they'll get into something and like there's an issue where Lockheed is hurt and she's like, oh no, Kitty's gonna kill me. So he remains Kitty's. But
so she just like has him?
But pals around with him. So yeah, I mean that is straight from the
All
comics.
right, well anyway.
Not the puppet, but
no, like Lockheed.
Lockheed,
right.
Yeah.
So she's got Lockheed as a hand puppet.
Yes.
And so you just sort of figure that's, what they're doing. Like, it's cute. She has Lockheed.
I was impressed by Rain's comic accurate hair. Her little, like, red buzz.
Yep.
You know?
Very haphazardly chopped.
Yeah. Again,
short haircut.
Ali Sheedy. If you're talking Brat Pack, she's the Ali Sheedy character.
There you go. Let's map it all out. Okay, so we're basically using this to introduce who these people are. Because Dr. Reyes is like, tell us about, your first time having powers or whatever.
Yeah.
And so you hear about Rain, who is a little cagey for most of it about what her power is.
Yes.
But she's basically describing her first time being a wolf and like running around because that's what her power is.
Yeah, but they kind of keep that as a reveal, right? I mean, you don't really see that for
They
a
do,
while.
but then they don't make it a reveal. Like they kind of hide it, but like you see her running that one time.
Yeah.
And there's never like a what? She's a wolf?
Yeah, I'm not really sure what the game plan there was.
But anyway,
for that. Yep.
So that happens, and Ileana is very sullen and not wanting to cooperate. And Sam seems like, nice, but doesn't really want to be there. And is, and then Roberto's just like...
I mean, he's putting up he's fronting with kind of a macho, like hitting on the girls, like I'm the cool kid vibe. And of course, I mean, you find out a little bit more about him as it goes on, but that's again how he's presented in that very like stereotypical kind of way. He's just like the jock.
Yeah. So then Danny shows up and, please Danny, come join us. Yeah.
Again, another kind of a classic trope there.
Yeah.
Right away, Danny and Ileana hates her. I mean, there's not really much of an explanation as to why, but she just kind of does, right from the start.
Yeah, she does. She is particularly antagonistic towards her, but I think just Ileana's general thing is that she's just disdainful of everyone.
Right.
And,
Here's the new kid.
Of course, again, we learn more about all of these characters later on that explain these kinds of things. But yeah, that's her whole...
Yep.
Dealio.
Yeah. In another one straight from the guidebook, Ileana is assigned to be the tour guide to Danny.
Yes, which is funny because that's sort of the kind of thing that like maybe an actual therapist would do, but like I don't really know why Dr. Reyes does that. But anyway, she's like, okay, great, you're standing up, you can take Danny around.
Yep.
And so Ileana shows her around the facility. There is a moment that I do like when Ileana, when they get to the front door.
Yeah.
And she's just like, hey, Dr. Reyes, getting her to open the door.
Yeah.
Just she's so familiar at this point with how the whole system works. So then they go out. She points out all of the area. It's this weird, sort of like a Catholic school grounds or something.
It does sort of, again, going back to the 50s, it has that sort of, this was a religious hospital. Like, here's the chapel, here's the schoolhouse, here's the hospital.
But there are several times where you see other buildings in the background.
Yeah.
Like when they're on the roof of the chapel. Yeah. You see at least two separate buildings. Yeah. It's weird. I don't know what's going on.
It is. No, it's a strange locale, definitely.
But then, so this is sort of placing us where we are. Yeah. Ileana says, there's nobody within 20 miles and but there's no fence. Right. And so if you want,
you there's probably no fence. Yeah, she could just run for it.
You can just run. And so Danny's like, okay, and she just goes. Yeah. Ileana's just laughing at her because she's really just trying to manipulate her.
And this is where you see, and at this point you're supposed to not know, but you do see a wolf like running kind of with Danny, maybe to stop her. You don't really know.
You don't know what's going on with the wolf. Yeah, I guess I wonder, because I knew who it was. I wonder if you're supposed to feel some menace there.
I do think that's supposed to be I think they meant it to be a reveal. I think they purposely hide it that it's Rain/Wolfsbane.
Yeah. I just mean because Danny's running, and so are you supposed to think that oh no, the wolf is after her?
Or are you supposed to think that the wolf is a part of Danny's whole thing?
Well, I don't think we know anything about Danny's whole thing at that point.
You're right.
Anyway, so Danny's running, And then she goes smack into an invisible wall.
Oh, yes.
Like, full speed, face plants into this wall.
Ileana loves this.
She thinks it's great. Ileana has followed her so that she can experience this.
Yeah.
So, surprise, there is
a fence after all.
Yes. Yep. And I guess we assume that that's Dr. Reyes being mutant.
Yes.
And putting that up.
Yeah.
This is just adding to Danny's hopelessness at this point.
Yeah. And this is your first little glimpse of what's going on with Ileana power-wise, too.
Because she disappears? I don't remember.
Yeah. Because Danny's like, oh, I'm going to mess you up. And so she, like, goes to run at her.
Right.
And Ileana does the teleportation, or she, does her thing. And you're like, oh, okay, that's what it is. And Rain, the wolf, just kind of vanishes, and there's no resolution to why she was there in that scene.
So now we have a moment of introspection.
Yes, we do.
And Danny is remembering the reservation and remembering that she is all alone.
Do you get a vibe that she's repressing what happened at the reservation or genuinely doesn't know?
I think she just doesn't know.
Okay.
Anywho, Dr. Reyes had some statement about survivor guilt, and she kind of like has that cycling through her head, and so she just decides, I'm just gonna go
end it all,
jump off a building. So she climbs up into the chapel. Yeah. And goes all the way up to the steeple thing.
The clock tower.
And climbs out, and she's just ready to
and she's out there.
Off.
I mean, she's standing on a very, very shallow ledge when Rain pops out.
She's like ready. She takes a step out. Yeah. And then Rain pops her head out and is like, "Hey, what are you doing out here?"
Yeah, she's very disarming. She does it very well.
Yeah,
the way
I think
she talks
so.
her down.
I think so. And just sort of like talks for a little bit, and then gets her to come back in. Yeah. And then they tumble in and have kind of that classic.
Oh, definitely.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I fell on you.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. They vibe right from the get-go there, definitely.
So you get kind of like the hints at things to come.
Yeah. Yeah, and we mess a little bit here with Rain's weird background in religion. Because we saw in the group therapy scene that a lot of her flashbacks involve the priest like calling her a witch and that being a whole thing. Yeah. And she says here when she's talking to Danny that she had thought about killing herself, but she's afraid to because she was taught that suicides are a straight ticket to hell. Yeah. So you get a little bit of her religious background.
Yeah, she seems to be like a strict Catholic upbringing situation. But she saves Danny, and the moment seems to have passed. Yeah. So we're good.
We're good for now.
So they come out of the chapel.
Yes.
And Dr. Reyes scolds them. But mostly they kind of get off because Rain is like one of the good kids.
Yeah, and I think you sort of get a sense that we find out that she's the first at this
Oh, I think I missed
place.
that.
Yeah. And she says that she can pretty much, she's kind of got free reign. Her and Sam, because they're the good ones. Right. So that's sort of established here. Because
they seem to just kind of like accept that Dr. Reyes is there to help them, and they're there for a reason. Yeah. They just sort of go along.
Yeah, I mean, Sam in particular has his own reasons for thinking that he should stay, which are not known to us yet at this point in the movie.
It's a mystery.
But we get a little Sam action now.
Yep, so now we see him using his power, even though it's not super clear what that is, but he hooks himself up to...
basically a tetherball court?
Yeah, and then just like shoots around.
Right, yeah. Like a cannonball, would you say?
Like a cannonball.
Okay, interesting.
Yes. So that's just sort of like, we get to see that. Yes. And Rain suggests that maybe he's just sort of punishing himself for something. So...
they just sort of continue on, like, hanging out, I guess, and we kind of see them walking through the facility more.
Yeah, a lot of this movie is just them sort of, like, moving from room to room. In a group, and you just sort of see them interacting in different ways, which in some ways kind of works. Yeah. Because I feel like the composition of the group is really well done. Yeah. And, their chemistry is okay. Yeah. So, and like the setting is weird enough. Yeah. And there's enough of like this atmosphere of what's going on that it's sort of like, it almost works. Yeah. But the impression that I get, this is where I feel like it stands out the most what happened with this movie. Yeah. About how they were going to do reshoots and all of that stuff, because this is where it starts to really feel like scenes.
Yes. That's exactly.
That are not a full movie.
I agree.
Like the frame is there. Like you can start the movie and end the movie. You've watched a movie. You know what happened.
Yeah.
But there are many, many scenes where it's like, so then they'll do something like this, and then they'll do something like this, rather than you get to see the full progression of what's going on.
Yes, and I feel like when you get to, if you break the movie into thirds and you say like the middle third, you could watch in any order, right?
Yes, definitely.
And it just wouldn't matter. And so, like, I guess this is sort of a spoiler. I don't know how you do things here on Previously on X-Men.
Just carry on.
But I do like this movie. So I'll just say right now that I do like this movie. But I would never say that it's well made.
Yeah, that's
because there's things that's like we kind of set up scenes and then those scenes don't resolve. We set up, we're like, oh, we're dropping a breadcrumb here, and then they're like, but now we're in the cafeteria.
Right.
Sometimes the scene it'll set up like you're doing a traditional, we see this, we see this, we see this, we see this, jumping back and forth between two locations or two sets of characters, and then maybe you do that like 3 times, and then you stop doing that. You just stay with one scene for a really long time. So
I think
it's haphazard.
Yeah, I think saying not well made is the right way to put it, because it's not a problem of it being a not well crafted movie.
Yeah,
like I think it has the bones to be a good movie.
I do too.
It's just an unfinished movie.
I think it's well cast. I think the look, I think the location, I think so many of the things are right, but
yeah,
it just...
it's very weird. I mean, I guess it's just because they decided that they just didn't care anymore, and so they just released it as it was.
Yeah.
But it just feels very much like they don't have scenes. Like there's... We start in the cafeteria and then we're in whatever.
Exactly.
But like there's something happens in the middle there that we just don't see.
Right.
We have no idea.
Right. Yeah. It honestly, it feels like, if you're doing a like a stage play and you do like a cue to cue, like a tech rehearsal, it's like, okay,
yes,
and then
exactly.
this and then this, and we set the lights for this
exactly.
and this and this.
It's like a framework.
Yes. It's like we took a rough cut of this film and then just finished the special effects and left it as is. That's exactly what it feels like. Okay. Like, I feel like that's just what it is. So then we are in agreement.
I feel, no, but like knowing about about what happened with it, I feel like that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I think a lot of the time you'll see a movie and you'll be like, it's almost like this, but I think that's just what it
Literally
is.
what it is.
I think that's just what they did.
Like, they put it in a can and was like, all right, well, we'll go back and smooth that out. And then they were just like, oh, no, just press play.
And then, exactly. That is what I think happened. That is what I think happened. Anyway, so in the cafeteria, you have, I mean, this is another one of those, like, classic teen experiences.
Yeah. Again, I don't really understand why Roberto is just, like, working in the cafeteria either.
Well, I think
he seems to be the only one with a job.
That's true. He is the only one who does anything.
I mean, nobody
else.
else.
Sam, no. Sam helps with the laundry. I think the idea is that there's no one else there.
Right.
And they are just, like, doing everything.
Yeah.
But you're right that we don't see, like, Ileana doing anything.
It felt like we're seeing Roberto in, like, this is your assigned role.
Yes.
And then nobody else has assigned roles.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, that is
I don't
weird.
get it, but okay.
But anyway, so they're in the cafeteria. Yeah. Danny has that moment of like, where do I sit? And Ileana kind of like prods her a little bit.
Yeah, it's pretty racist towards her.
She's so freaking racist in this movie. It was like, there were several times that I was like, can they...
I actually kind of wondered that too. I wondered that too.
Like,
a few of the things she said, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So, okay.
Anyway, so she's just awful to Danny, and we never do really figure out why she goes quite as hard. Although it's possible that that's just how she was with everybody.
Yeah.
And she's just sort of settled into a
whoever
thing.
the newest person is. Yeah, I don't know. This is where we do get some background on Sam at this point, right?
Yeah, I don't remember this.
Well, it's...
Do they sit down at some point?
Well, this is a scene that gets a little confusing because we're bouncing back and forth between two different scenes, but very poorly done. Is
this when Roberto and Sam are talking?
Yes.
Okay, so they're in another room.
Right. Laundry,
this is the laundry.
I think we're doing laundry.
Okay, so this is the part with the laundry.
That's what I mean. It's like, is it the same afternoon? Is it the same 10 minutes? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. So anyway, that is what's happening.
Yes.
And that's That's a nice kind of like, they're opening up to each other.
Right.
Kind of a moment.
Which, again, that's another thing that's true in the comics. Those characters are shown to be, like, particularly close in the New Mutants.
Yeah, which is, kind of a cutesy thematic thing. Because Roberto comes from a really, like, insanely wealthy family. Yeah. And Sam is, like, this poor coal miner guy.
With quite an accent in this movie. It's like Dick Van Dyke and Mary Poppins, I feel like.
What is it? Kentucky that he's from?
Yeah.
I don't know what a Kentucky accent sounds like.
I don't think it sounds like that, but maybe.
I guess I sort of felt like that actor would be able to do stuff like that.
I suppose.
Like I had for some reason confidence in him.
And he's got Stranger Things. Stranger Things it buys you a lot of.
Well, I think it's him though. Like I think there's just something about him that it seems like he'd take it seriously.
I think you should tell him.
But he doesn't want to hear from me.
No, I know. So we learned that Sam basically has to drop out of school and like go work in the mines to help take care of his family. And then there's some accident, some horrible thing happens, and we don't really know what. And yes, Berto is loaded. That's his thing. Yeah.
But he's kind to Sam in not a condescending way.
No, I think it's a genuine. He gives him a shirt.
Thing. Yeah, which also doesn't feel like, oh well, you can have this. Yeah. It just feels nice. Like I don't need this. You can have it. Whatever.
It does.
It's a character moment, but it's also you're seeing kind of like the bowels of the building. And
and you're also seeing that even though they're having these private moments, they are being watched.
Yeah, you're constantly being watched. But you're always seeing the cameras.
This was another thing that, for me, didn't pay off. Because, and I wonder if they really were planning on doing like a sinister cap at the end. Because a lot of times you see the computer monitors, but you don't see who's watching.
I think the idea is that the person who's watching is not in the building.
I think so too, but you never see that. You do see Reyes looking at computers at some point.
You see Reyes looking at computers. I think that what you see is that someone is instructing her on the computer. I don't think that she really has contact with anybody. It seems to me that it's a very like separated
but
kind of a thing.
I agree. She is given some instructions throughout, but I just feel like to continue to show us that some mystery person is watching the monitor and never pay that off, I just think is weird.
Yes, you're right. I think that it's just because when they made it, they were planning to have more happen at some point. Yeah. Like, I don't think it was necessarily like going to happen in the movie.
Okay, all right. So you don't think
it's like this will pay off later.
Okay. The thing that's maybe crucial on those monitors is you can see that it's also monitoring their power.
Right. And they can't quite figure out what's going on with Danny.
Right. And she keeps registering psionic energy.
Yeah. So I guess there's another jump here because now Danny's going to be asleep because while they're watching her, it's fluctuating. Yeah. And then that's right because Sam is still in the laundry room.
Right.
While Danny is asleep.
Right.
So whatever's going on with their day.
Yeah.
She's sleeping.
They sleep in shifts.
I don't know.
2 hours at a time, like Da Vinci.
She's sleeping. Let's say that when they were in the cafeteria, it was dinner.
Let's say it's dinner. Yeah, why not? Why not? They just did the tour first thing in the morning, but it's dinner.
Yeah. Scenes. This is what I'm saying. Yes. We are completely missing.
Yeah, sentence fragments.
Anyway, so Danny is...
Just phrases.
Danny's sleeping. We're seeing the psionic energy start to fluctuate centered on her.
Yeah.
And then... Sam, who is now alone in the laundry room, starts to hear sounds.
Yes.
From the washing machine or the dryer or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the power goes out.
Yeah.
This is sort of like the first moment of like scary movie-ness.
Exactly. This is the one that feels like maybe this could be a horror movie, but nah.
Yeah. It comes back here
no,
and there.
It does. It
comes back here and there. It's not consistent.
Right.
But yeah, so that's this moment. Sam is creeping towards the dryer to try to figure out what's going on and weirdly transitions into, I guess it's when the power goes out.
Yeah.
That now it's dark. And now he's sort of like in a weird flashback. It's like a waking dream.
Yes, but like the use of the dryer is very confusing. Because he's pulled to this dryer and then he's in a flashback, but the dryer still feels like it's somehow part of it.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't either.
I guess I feel like they're playing with the fear thing because that's an integral part of why any of it's happening. Sure. And I guess I feel like maybe it was just a trigger for him maybe he had to sort of be in the place to be kind of unsettled.
Yeah.
To sort of like draw Danny's attention or
I
something.
guess so. Yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, he transitions into this dream flashback
He's back in the
thing
mines.
where he's in the mines,
Yeah.
but it's clearly like something's happening. It's not a real memory.
Yeah.
And there's the guys with the
Pickaxes and things,
doing stuff. But as he walks, they are all turning to watch him.
Right. It is
and
creepy.
then he's getting it's creepy.
Yeah.
And then he gets closer to this man at the end, and then he turns around and it's his father, and he's like, "What did you do?" And then he like freaks out.
Yeah, and you kind of get the impression that whatever caused this issue was the manifestation of his powers for the first time. Caused some
Like
issue
what he's
in the
remembering.
minds. Yes,
Yeah.
that he's remembering a traumatic incident where his powers went a little haywire, killing his dad.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah,
So a
that's the
lot of
assumption.
patricide here in the New Mutants
I
household.
guess so. Yeah. But he kind of comes to in a moment where he like blasts the dryer.
Yeah.
And then that kind of like snaps him out of it, but he's destroyed the dryer.
Right. Well, luckily there's like 5 dryers and 5 people, so everybody
It's
gets
perfect.
their own. Yeah.
So he's out of his thing.
Yeah.
Danny wakes up. End of scene.
Yeah. She specifically is noticing that the red light is on in her camera, and I couldn't really track why sometimes the red light was on and sometimes it wasn't. Because they look to it a lot, and they make note of like
didn't notice.
the red light has blinked on, but there's never really a resolution.
That could just be like this camera is paying attention
It's
to you
active
now or
it's
something.
recording. Yeah, I don't know.
Anywho, so the next morning we have a shower, and have they not had kind of like a romantic moment yet?
No, they did just the one at the clock tower when they like
So that's
fall.
it?
That's it. Yeah, that's
Okay.
it.
Well, anyway, so now there's a shower, and it's one of those big open, gross ones that
Yeah.
I would hate.
No thanks.
Danny notices that there's a scar on Rain's back and sort of makes a little light of it, like it's body art or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rain does not want to talk about it, and so she leaves.
This is a weird jump because we see Sam in the shower, and he just
Different
starts.
shower,
Yeah, in
not
the
the
men.
same
No, in the men's shower, and he just starts like punching himself in the face.
Well, he looks in the mirror, right?
Yeah,
like
yeah.
He's looking in the mirror, like very like intensely.
Yeah.
And it's got to just be that he's remembering.
Yeah.
That he had killed these people.
But this is what I'm saying about like this is not a smooth window into this. It's just like
a lot of it is that kind of thing where it's like I guess this would have to be because
you have to
of
do
this.
You have to do your homework
You have to
here
do
in
a
the
lot
New
of work.
Mutants. Yeah, you have to give them a lot.
Anywho, yoga.
Yeah, it's a quick cut to yoga.
I don't remember yoga.
Yep. I thought it was going to be a thing, but it wasn't. That's the thing. It was like we see them doing yoga for like 5 seconds, and then we jump to the rec room scene.
So now we have a rec room scene. This is a scene that really jumped out at me as like a Girl Interrupted thing.
Yeah.
Just them sitting there and like the TV and all of that stuff. But anyway, we've got a scene from Buffy on there. It's Tara and Willow, which I assume is only there to be like lesbians exist,
I guess so. Yeah.
so that we can sort of be ready for that, I guess. But so that's happening. Rain's watching Buffy.
They do.
They exist.
Yeah.
Okay, so Rain's watching Buffy. Ileana is just kind of like lurking with Lockheed.
As she does.
And then Danny draws her attention.
By existing.
And Ileana, I mean, a little bit feels like she's trying to provoke Danny because Danny's got this kind of complacent attitude. So it feels a little bit like, I mean, I'm going to say like Angelina Jolie in Girl Interrupted.
Girl Interrupted,
I
the
honestly,
film,
until we started recording, did not clock the similarities, and now I can't stop. But anyway, it has a little bit of that vibe where she's trying to help her in her own like crappy way.
Yeah, yeah.
But it manifests by her being hideously racist.
Openly racist, yeah.
Danny is like just standing right up to her and being like, oh, yeah, I've never heard that before kind of thing. And then eventually they're going to like fight.
Yeah.
Do they fight?
So they're going to, and this is the first time that we see Ileana with a metal arm and the soul sword. This is like the first time that happens. And they go to fight, and Reyes comes in and puts like the bubble between them.
Yes. Yep. And she decides that both of them are going to go separately into solitary.
Yeah, into the hole.
Into the hole, which is a thing in this institution.
I guess so.
And Rain tries to kind of get like, oh, it wasn't Danny's fault, but
Yeah.
she just, whatever.
She's
just
not having it.
dumping you both
Yep.
in there. This time, Ileana doesn't really seem to care. Later on, she like really freaks out
she
about
has,
the
like, a
idea
big
of
issue
being
of going
in isolation, but she doesn't really seem to care.
She's fine here. Yeah, I don't get that either.
But so then they must be sort of like right next to each other because Danny overhears.
Which to me is
Ileana.
very counterproductive.
That's
the
not
point
solitary.
is solitary, but
That's like camp.
I
Is that not what camp was like for you?
I never went to camp. I don't know. I can't comment.
But so like we hear, this is sort of like our first glimpse of like a vulnerable Ileana
Yes.
a little bit because she thinks she's alone with Lockheed. But Danny can overhear her talking about like, it's okay, you know, let's go to our special place.
Yeah.
You know, things like that have kind of like they're very reminiscent of like a childlike coping mechanism.
Yes. Yeah, well, she's saying go to our special place and the smiling men won't get us. And this is I think the first drop that we know about these like smiling men that sort of haunt her, which I don't remember that element of the character from the comics. That's in nothing I've read.
Yeah, I don't know a super lot about magic.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's specific to her character. I mean, she has like a tragic background. She grew up in hell sometimes, sometimes
basically.
limbo.
Yeah, it's
But I don't remember that specifically.
No.
But I mean, it
works for the film.
It works for the film.
Yeah.
It's got a bit of a kind of a pop psychology feel to it, but like they just want to do the thing and it works. Then I guess Danny goes to sleep again at some point. I feel like watching the movie, I was like, boy, these scenes really jump around a lot. Trying to walk through the scenes.
Yeah.
This is like no other movie
I know.
that we have done on this podcast because I just can't even like at some point this happens and like it must be that she's asleep because
we need her to
stuff
be asleep
happens.
for the
So anyway, I guess Danny falls asleep and we see the monitors happening again with like, oh, something's happening with her psionic powers. And I think she's getting we see some flashes of her memory. Like she's dreaming now. A lot of the time when we see her psionic powers, we're seeing like psionic powers happening over here and then things happening to other people.
Yeah.
This time I think it's more about her. Mm-hmm. She's having this memory and you see from the outside that something's falling and it's sort of like falling like ash because it's like it floats. But then when it lands, it's red and like liquidy. It
seems like blood.
So I think it's blood, but the way it falls is very interesting. Mm-hmm. But anyway, she's back in the forest where she was running from whatever.
Yeah.
And she sees some sort of like creature chasing her, which I think is the creature that was chasing her in the beginning that
Must
like
be.
killed everybody.
Yeah,
that's my interpretation.
We just see the red eyes at this point.
And hear like a kind of a situation.
Sounds,
So she's freaking out and then Reyes kind of like wakes her up and is like, what's going on? She's covered in blood. Mm-hmm. And that freaks out Reyes. Yeah. Because I think as Reyes and whoever have been tracking this power, like it's become pretty clear at this point that they're trying to figure out what is Danny's power.
Yes.
Like what's going on with her. And you see a lot of the psionic energy. And I think that the idea that they were going with was that she's psychic in some way.
Right.
And I think the fact that this blood was real and it was on her.
It stayed
just
past
kind
the
of
vision.
It seemed to freak out Dr. Reyes.
I think
like,
it tossed them
what's going
completely off what they were thinking.
Yeah. So she takes her to the infirmary and is like checking her out, doing doctor things. We get a little bit more of like the rationale for this facility. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, we're making sure
we get a title drop here, don't we?
Did they say New Mutants?
Yeah, she's saying like New Mutants don't know how to control their power and they need to be sequestered and, you know, trained.
Yeah, and I guess you sort of have the idea that it's not necessarily all mutants.
Yeah.
It's like these certain mutants that seem extra dangerous for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And she does the thing where it's like, it's for your own safety and we don't want to hurt yourself.
Right, of course, yeah.
But like also, you're all like...
You're a problem.
Very dangerous.
You're a problem, my friend.
You're a problem. I guess Danny brings up Rain at some point, and Dr. Reyes is like, yes, I've noticed that you know, get along and she's a good influence and stuff. So
Reyes seems to kind of know that something more than just like, you guys are good friends is going down.
So then we cut, again, surprise, to the chapel. Mm-hmm. Rain is going into confession by herself. I don't know if this is a thing that happens
I don't
when
know.
there aren't priests in the area.
I wouldn't think so.
But she goes in there and she acts as if there is a priest, lists some sins.
She goes through the whole thing, yeah.
And she basically just gives herself the penance.
Yeah.
She just sort of picks whichever it is. But it starts with a very, like, she does this all the time. She's comfortable here. This is a, you know, very routine moment. But then things start to get a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, the atmosphere just kind of changes.
The atmosphere shifts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the door on the other, you can sort of see through that screen, you
Yeah.
know, between where the
Where the
parishioner
priest would
is and the
sit.
priest.
Yeah.
And you see the door on the priest's side open and close as if someone had come in, but you don't see anybody come in. And so she's just sort of like, hello. Like,
Yeah,
that's freaky.
It's very creepy. The way it happens is very creepy.
And then she just, there's nobody there. You don't see anybody. But then you hear very distinctly a man's voice.
Yeah.
Like yelling at her.
Yeah.
And calling her a witch.
Yeah, yeah.
And stuff. And she like freaks out. Then she runs out with like the voice calling after her. And so this feels like it's something from her past.
Yeah.
That for whatever reason she's re-experiencing. But it just, you know, all of the stuff about the priest beating her up and all that stuff.
Branding her. Remember,
Yeah.
that's why we have the W. This, to me, is probably the most confusing cut of the whole movie.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because we go from that scene to Danny going and finding Rain, being like, oh, are you okay? And then the other three come and they're like, we're hanging out. Let's go on a hang.
Yes, I remember.
And it's just so bizarre.
Yeah. Well, it's sort of like, because the three of them act sort of like they're the cool kids. And
Right.
they're going to go off and hang out.
Right.
And these two nerds have discovered it.
Yeah.
But then, like, the nice kids are like,
Yeah,
yeah, just
all
let
right,
them
come
come.
on,
Just let
yeah.
them come.
Yeah.
Even though Ileana, who's like the queen bee, isn't about it. So they go up to, I was imagining it for some reason being the attic of the chapel, but is it just the attic of the regular?
I think they're in the main place. Yeah.
Okay. But they go up to some attic space that sort of has like things covered and all this
Yeah.
stuff, and there's a lie detector test.
This
This is the first time. Yeah, you're right. The tone shifts a lot. Like, we haven't so far. It's been, these are individuals in a weird setting.
Yeah.
And this is the first time that it's like, oh, I guess they're supposed to have relationships
Right.
of some kind.
Some kind of growth as supposedly has happened that we haven't seen.
So I don't know if time has passed.
I don't think
Or
so. Yeah,
what?
I don't know. But my issue with this scene, when I said it's the most jarring, is because we've had a lot of jump arounds, but tonally, even though like story-wise, it's like, okay, I guess we've gone through this whole day in 10 minutes, but like tonally it feels the same. This, we are in a different movie for the
you're right.
duration of this scene, period.
Yeah.
And I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, it's very weird. Anyway, they're all hanging around. They find this lie detector test
Yeah.
that they don't seem to really use.
Not really.
But they're like asking each other secrets about their lives or whatever. And so this is sort of where you find out things about the various people. Roberto's first, and they ask him about like how many girls he's been with or whatever.
Yeah.
And he says,
The number keeps going down and down and down and down, basically.
yeah. And so eventually you figure out he's probably a virgin.
Right.
Which is shameful.
Shameful.
And so they make fun of him, and he's like, whatever. Then Sam comes up. We find out that he killed, I think, that whole team.
Yeah.
That he just, like, collapsed that entire mine.
And that he's really holding that guilt and feels like whatever this place is, it's where he belongs.
Yeah.
You know, it's what he deserves.
Yeah. Does Danny sit at the thing? No, she doesn't.
No.
Because
That's right.
Ileana says it's Danny's turn, but she doesn't need to use the
Yeah.
the
She's
lie
like, I
detector
can read
because
her
she can
without
tell.
it. Yeah.
She can
just
tell if she's
yeah.
lying. And she asks her what her power is, which kind of like goes back to her pushing her in the previous scene. It seems like she's trying to get her to learn. I don't know.
I think that would work if any of the middle scenes were there.
Yeah. But anyway, she doesn't know. She asks her about the stupid bear necklace.
Yes.
And it was a gift from her father. And here's where we find about another bear thing.
Yes,
that
the
is
demon
not
bear.
the bear thing from the monologue at the beginning.
Yes.
This is a separate bear
Yes.
story.
Yes.
But this is about the bear. Everybody's born with a bear in them. And it's small, but as you get older, it like feeds on your fear.
Yeah.
And so then it grows and grows and grows.
And so I don't understand why that's a like a child's necklace gift.
It's a terrible gift.
This
but what
will
she
be
says
the embodiment of your fear.
What she says
Thank you.
is that he gave her the necklace so that she would remember how small the bear was.
Okay. All right.
When she was born.
All right. I'll allow it.
So, like, that's fine. Not actually helpful.
Not really.
Because,
no.
like, that's how small it used to be.
Right.
It's not that small anymore, and there's nothing you can do to control it.
Correct.
But anyway, so she has this... I think the only thing that we need to know is that she has this concept of a demon bear tied up with her fear.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Mm-hmm. So then Ileana hops on and she stoically reveals that she killed 18 men.
18 men with her sword and Lockheed.
And they're like, oh, she's just bragging. But then like, oh.
Yeah, Rain is like, no, the machine says
it's true.
What?
Now we have group therapy again.
Yay.
So I guess the fun times are over.
Yeah. This is kind of a weird scene because it's kind of...
Is this the control? Is this the part where we get there and she's like, control?
This is, that's the yoga.
That's the yoga.
Yeah. This is a really quick scene in group therapy. And we see, I feel like kind of a different side of Reyes where I don't know if she's meant to be openly like threatening them, but she's kind of saying like, she's really playing on Sam's guilt. I mean, she's saying, you know what you did. If you weren't here, you'd be in prison. This is the best place for you. And you're... You know.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a turning point.
Yeah.
Because it's like she's still acting like a doctor.
Right.
But you see that what she's saying is harmful.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of like this, what exactly is going on with her, and like is she keeping them there against their will in like a weird...
Yeah. Well, I think, too, I mean, right before this, before the Breakfast Club scene ends, we get the reveal that Reyes has been watching this the whole time, when they were certain that this area was not covered and they were safe to be free. So you kind of get the impression that she's been manipulating them that way as well.
Yeah.
Letting them think that there was kind of a safe zone and still having
but
it
she's
be
still
something she's
studying
monitoring.
them.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then we have another kind of like fun...
Yeah.
time
Another
because
Breakfast Club moment.
Ileana
Yep.
has drugged Reyes's tea
Yeah.
with something
Yeah.
that she got somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so Reyes is out.
Yeah.
She's just sleeping in her office and they're going to go do hijinks.
This scene, this whole little interlude here where they're like dancing.
Where they're friends.
Where they're like all best friends and dancing around.
Yeah.
And, I mean, this is so straight out of the Breakfast Club that it has to be intentional. It has to be. It's too close.
I understand that, but also the Breakfast Club has just become a map.
I guess.
For all this kind of crap.
Yeah.
Like, I just think any movie could do those things.
I would be hard pressed to believe that Breakfast Club wasn't specifically in their mind, because this scene
is awful.
It is.
Like, there's nothing good about this scene.
No, I agree.
This is one of those scenes that you just can see the director being like, and you know, toss that thing to her.
Have fun with each other.
And
Dance.
they're just not like there's
get in that wheelchair.
Do they have like a tambourine or something?
Yeah.
There's just like these really like tight cuts of like one or two people doing something that seems playful but doesn't connect to anything else.
True, but the good news is Ileana's suddenly fun now.
She's fun now.
She's fun.
She's fun.
This is the moment where we say the word X-Men. And I was genuinely surprised that we got that.
That's true. Roberto has been in a wheelchair, just like playing in the wheelchair.
Yeah, just rolling around,
because that's a thing that we do in these kinds of scenes. And so, he has that kind of... There's like the montage scene, and then we all gather together in the rec room and sort of like, haha, let's chat.
Yeah.
And Roberto has the wheelchair. Someone is talking about, so where do you think we're going? And like, we're going to be X-Men. And he does that head thing, like he touches his head like McAvoy does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very clear that they're like, we're going to go be X-Men after this, right? Like that's obviously what we're going to do.
Which that's a little timeline confusing if you're saying... I mean, I think maybe your suggestion of saying it, he'd slot this maybe prior to the events of Logan.
Yeah, I think it has to be.
They're not remembering...
Yeah. So I think...
The 60s.
Yeah, timeline, I think they're somewhere when the X-Men are a thing.
Yeah.
So before Logan.
Yeah.
But it has to be after a time when, like, the X-Men are public figures.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, you're never going to jam it in there. You're
No,
going down the
I
road
think-
Eric goes down.
No, but I think that the reason that
can see it
it
happening.
seems confusing
Yeah.
is that you have these scenes from that institution.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it still works because that's what's happening right now
Yeah.
in New Mutants.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just some time in the past
Yeah.
for Logan.
Right.
So it doesn't matter when in the
I
past.
guess that's true. Yeah.
And I mean, like, Laura was in that facility. She
Right.
escaped from that facility. But that facility could have been running for
True.
however long.
That's true.
You know? Like, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
a confounding thing.
Mm-hmm.
But setting that aside, they're all very excited to be X-Men, although Sam doesn't think he deserves it. Continuing with their hijinks, Rain decides to show Danny that she can sneak out of the building.
Right.
Because she goes through, like, the
Yeah.
ducts and stuff.
Yeah, like in
and
Die
so
Hard.
she, like in Die Hard.
Yeah.
So she sneaks them out, and they are outside now. It's not particularly exciting because they're still inside
Trapped like a little
the
cemetery
dome, but
area,
they're out and about. And she decides that she's going to show her something, and she takes her to the cemetery, because there's a cemetery,
Yeah.
and tells her to lie down on a grave,
Right. Yeah.
which she does
She
with
does.
no problem at all.
No, she doesn't.
And then they just lie there, and it starts to rain, and the raindrops hit the dome, and it
Yeah.
makes it really pretty,
Mm-hmm.
which is cool. And then that's just so romantic that they can't bear it.
They have to.
And so they sort of keep shifting as they're talking. They keep shifting a
Classic
little,
moves.
a
Yeah,
little
I recognize
closer
those
and
moves.
stuff.
Yeah.
And then they kiss. And I guess it's Rain's first kiss. Is that what she says?
Yes, I think
I've
so.
never done this before.
Yeah.
So that's her first kiss.
Yeah, and her eyes glow. She gets like the wolf glow in
Yeah,
her
and
eyes.
she's all
and-
embarrassed, but Danny's like, it's beautiful.
yeah. She's fine, and they kiss more.
And they kiss more, so they're very young love. At the same time, inside still,
Yeah.
Sam and Roberto are
They're
chatting again,
yeah,
like they do.
I think we know Sam's background, but I think this is the first time that Berto really hears what Sam's story is, and so
Yeah.
they're gelling.
And then we get sort of some empathy happening there.
Yes.
Then that scene ends in some way, and Roberto hears some like singing, some like ethereal kind of voice
Yeah,
happening.
he hears a siren song.
And it's sort of, it's like a switch has flipped, and it's like, oh,
Yeah.
we're going to have another one of these weird
Right,
happenings.
right.
But he finds the pool, and Ileana is in the pool,
Right.
swimming around and singing. And she says that he can come in, but he has to turn off the lights. And so he gets in, and they, she's sort of teasing him,
Right.
and
Right.
flitting around in
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah, they're both in their underwear.
And then he tells her that he had a girlfriend, but that when they were getting,
Serious.
serious,
Yeah.
his power got out of control, and he ended up burning her to death.
Yeah. Rough stuff.
Burning her to death.
I heard you when you said it.
And so that was traumatic
Yeah.
for him. But then what happens? Like, she's not there for a second.
Yeah, it's splashing around, and then, like, she's just gone. And then we get a glimpse in the monitor that Ileana is in her room, dressed.
Right.
Not just fresh out of
So
a pool.
who is this
Right.
in the pool with
Yeah.
Roberto? And then he's sort of like looking around for her, and we see creeping up behind him a burnt up corpse
Yes.
that like grabs him, and he's like, "Rah!" and he freaks
Yeah.
out, and then he like flames up and is
Yeah.
crazy. And then the alarms start going because there's a giant flaming
Yeah,
creature in the pool. That wakes up Dr. Reyes.
Yeah.
So she's been out this whole time
Right.
because of the drug.
Passed out of her
tea.
chair. Yeah.
But that wakes her up, and she's like, what is happening? And she looks at the thing, and everybody's all over the place, and what is happening? And she sees Berto, and she has to go to the pool. She runs to the pool, and she grabs the the pool cleaner
pool
thing,
skimmer,
and
yeah.
just like bams
Pushes him in. Yeah.
unceremoniously into the
Yeah.
pool.
Yes.
And that, stops him from having fire all over her. And then Ileana just kind of like meanders into the room and is like, what's going on?
Yeah.
So then
Roberto is accusing Ileana of
he
having
says that
done
she tried
this.
to kill him.
Right. Yeah.
He says that she tried to kill him, and she's
Yeah.
like, no, I didn't. And
Yeah.
and it's one of those like, seems like she probably would have done that.
Right.
And so people don't really know who to believe.
Yeah.
And she's like, I definitely didn't do that.
And this is where she's sent to solitary again, right? And freaks out.
So, this is Reyes puts her in solitary again, and she just can't stand it.
I have a problem with this scene, and maybe I'm missing something here, but this kind of breaks the rules of all the other visions that we've seen. Is this something different than what's been happening to the other people?
I think it's escalating.
Right, but like if the point is to be throwing someone's fears right in their face, why does Roberto not see his girlfriend that he killed like alive in the pool, and then we go through this whole thing again? It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I think it's sort of like the dryer luring salmon. I think it's just sort of like things. I mean, it sort of makes sense that like things that could conceivably happen just sort of like lure them into the vision.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it just seems like the girl should have been at the very least unclear. I don't understand why you would use, like, it just seems to break the pattern of all the other things to have it be Ileana, like to appear as Ileana.
I think it makes sense with the dream element, because that's how things happen when you're dreaming. Your brain just automatically inserts things. Like if you
and I
if you
guess
had
we know
something
he's attracted to her, so he probably is afraid of.
He hears the singing.
Yeah.
It's just like some woman singing. He doesn't know that it's Ileana, but he assumes that it's her, and so his brain just puts that in.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
So now Ileana is in solitary.
Yeah.
Reyes is becoming increasingly alarmed by the Danny situation. She gets her all hooked up to try to figure out what's going on with her. And so she gives her something sort of like a
hallucinogen or something?
I don't think it's a hallucinogen. I think it's just something to make her suggestible.
Okay.
I don't really know. But she just sort of is like lying around. And Reyes starts to kind of ask her questions. And yeah, it is almost like she's hypnotizing her, but she's not. It's just drugs.
Yeah.
But she's trying to get her to kind of like be back in that time when she was in the village, and she remembers the snow. She remembers the demon bear. She now can like see the demon bear in her memory.
This is really like our first time of seeing what this is.
Yes.
We don't see it in the beginning. We see glowing eyes at one point, but now like we straight up see the demon bear.
Yes. And
it's pretty comic accurate, I gotta say.
Excellent. And then something seems to kind of shift. And I think what's happening is that Danny is starting to see into Dr. Reyes's mind. And we start to see those flashes of like the scene from Logan of like where Laura's from, basically.
Right.
Like this place with mutant kids. It seems like she's somehow kind of reaching into Dr. Reyes there.
Yeah, something about whatever the suggestible thing is doing to her, it's opening up a different part of her power, it seems like, so that she can maybe direct it a little bit more or get something back.
Yeah, and the fact that she's drugged seems to be sort of like messing with her control, and like crazy things are happening. So while this is happening, we see Rain in the shower again, and things just are kind of, there's just, the power is like being weird, and she finally sees the priest from her
Reverend
memory,
Craig is like
who's all scratched up, and she says, "I killed you," which we didn't know before.
No,
the only thing we knew was
reveal.
that he beat her.
Yeah.
We didn't know that she had done anything.
Yeah.
She killed him. He's dead, but he's there, and he's coming after her, and he has the brand
with the W.
And so she's freaking out. Then we go to see Ileana in isolation, and she sees,
well, it's like she sees something that looks like the image of a smiley face, and then it kind of turns into seeing the full like smiley face man.
Yeah. And then like it's kind of all intercut with scenes with Danny. And so you can sort of start to see, like, you've been suspecting that it's probably Danny doing these things, but this is the moment where it's like Danny's power is fluctuating.
Yes.
Things are happening at the same time. So it's very clear. Rain starts to transform when she's like freaking out about this. She goes
full wolf.
She does, but like the people are all together at this point because they run to the room because she's screaming.
Yes.
And so they all run over to see what's going on with her. She's in wolf form, runs out of the room, pushes right past them, and then she like collapses and goes back to human form. And you see the brand on her neck.
A new one.
Of the W.
Yeah.
And so this is This is like the blood thing. This is another indication.
It's a
that
physical
these are
manifestation.
real, actual things that are happening. It's not just an illusion.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the point where Ileana has decided it's Danny. Like, you guys are all freaking out. Like, it's haunted or something. This is Danny who is doing this. Right. And she acts like she's doing it on purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, Danny is doing this on purpose. Yeah. And so she, like, attacks her and sort of, like, strangles her and pushes her to the ground. And when she does that, she opens, like, a portal and pushes Danny's face down into it. And so Danny can see all of the surroundings with, like, lava and, like, fire and stuff. But then someone stops her. Oh, that's right. So she's holding Danny into this thing. And Danny sort of, like, reflex uses her power. Yeah. Because she's, like, in danger. And she morphs her face into the weird smiling mask that Ileana saw earlier. And Ileana screams and, like, freaks out and backs away. And then the portal goes away. So then Dr. Reyes drugs Ileana, and Ileana keeps insisting that Danny is, like, causing all of these problems and she's going to kill everybody. Yeah. But she's drugged, so that's kind of the end of that scene. So that's, like, the big heightened scene, but now everything is calm.
Yeah, we're chill.
Ileana's in her room, she's drawing, and she's kind of doing this cute little, like, somehow using her power to move crayons back and forth on the floor while she's drawing. So we keep having these kind of little moments where she's, like, this tough, mean person, but when she's alone, she's
sort
very...
of reverts.
Yeah, she seems to revert to kind of a child.
Yeah.
Danny comes in and is like, I'm sorry, you know, I can't control it. I don't know what's going on. And she sort of, like, tries to connect with Ileana, asks her, like, where was that place that you took me? Yeah. And for whatever reason, Ileana decides to share. Yeah. And
she brings back Lockheed. That's
right, yeah.
In the fight in the previous scene, Danny takes it, and that's one of the things that escalates it. So she brings it back in this scene, and that kind of opens Ileana up a little bit.
So Ileana's got Lockheed back. Right. And she says that the place that she took Danny was Limbo, and that it was a place that she and Lockheed made up when she was a child, because she was somewhere where men would come and she would just go somewhere else in her mind.
Dark. Gets real dark.
It gets so dark. And that, like, originally it was just pretend, but that eventually it became real. Yeah. So she must have done something with her power to kind of, like, access this place or create this place or whatever. But it's her and Lockheed's special place. Danny asks about who the smiling face was that she became. And Ileana says that she doesn't know, but they were all the same. And I don't even want to say it. Yeah. They were awful to her. Yeah. Meanwhile...
Yeah, it's kind of a hard cut, isn't it?
Reyes is getting a message on her computer that, you know, the data is now in on Danny. She is too dangerous. Eliminate her. Yeah. And Reyes has a moment of, like, oh, that's too bad, you know, before she kind of signs in. And it's like, okay, I guess we're doing that. So now we know. This is the, like, real, like, linchpin of, like... This is not a good place. Right. This is the biggest moment for that. Yeah. And then we see who the message is from. Yes. And it is from Essex Corp.
Yes. Which I mean, we've teased this before.
We've seen Essex before. Movies.
Yeah. And it just never seems to come to fruition for whatever reason.
It's because he's terrible.
Okay. All right. Okay.
And no one wants to see him.
Understood. Got it.
So anyway, this is Mr. Sinister.
Yes.
And...
John Hamm.
So it's the reveal that this is bad. This is not Xavier's place. It's a villain.
It seemed so fun up until this point. But now we know it's not a good place.
So now we cut again. Danny is going off to find Rain to kind of, like, talk to her about her experience before...
Yeah, well, talking about while she was drugged and was kind of creeping into Reyes's mind.
But she sort of comes to apologize first because
well, yeah.
She now seems to understand that she's causing these things. Yeah. And the brand on Rain and, like, the trauma. Rain, weirdly, does not hold it against her in the slightest.
Not at all.
Just, like, completely over it.
Very forgiving.
No problem at all. So good for her, I guess. But they're back to being close. And... Yeah, so then Danny is talking about, I had these visions, I think that I was seeing into Reyes's mind, and I don't think that we're going to the X-Men, I think we're going to this weird facility. We need to get out of here. Reyes shows up. She needs to do more tests on Danny. And Rain can't come with her. And Danny needs to just come. They have a little kiss. And then Rain has to leave.
Yeah. And Danny...
But Rain is a little suspicious.
Definitely. And I think Danny is willing to go with it because she sees the risk-reward situation here is like, yes, she'll have to take these drugs again, but she might be able to get more of a hook into Reyes's mind, which is her reason for not resisting it.
So she doesn't see this as any kind of escalation.
No.
She's just like, this is more the same.
This is the therapy we're doing.
We're just gonna, it's bad, but it's not dangerous.
Yep.
So while this is happening and Rain sort of seems like she's trying to figure out a way to stop this from happening, we get back to the rec room. Buffy is on the TV again. This is very clearly a purposeful episode choice. It's an episode called Hush, which is probably the most famous episode of Buffy. It's probably the only episode that I know the title of. I just... Like, I saw it on the TV in the movie, and I was like, oh, they're watching Hush. So it's a really cool episode. And it's about these, like, demon-y things. They are tall, thin men. So it's sort of reminiscent of the Smiling Men in this. And they just kind of, like, invade, and they make everything silent. So, like, you can try to talk, but it's just silent. And, like, you drop something, it's silent. There's just no sound.
That is creepy.
So the entire episode is completely silent. There's no dialogue. There's no music. Nothing. It's just silent. It's a really cool episode. Wow. But, like, I mean, we can get into the weeds on this. The main reason that they do it is because they take people's hearts out.
Okay. Whoa.
And they want to do that without making sound, I guess. And, like, alerting people or whatever. It's, like, kind of like the general thing. It's a whole...
All right.
Anyway, probably the idea is that the director or whoever just kind of got the idea from that. And so it's like, here you go. Because it's very reminiscent of, like, the weird spindly Smiling Men. So that's happening in the background.
And now it's kind of go time. This is a major escalation here.
Yes. So Danny's strapped to the table, and Reyes is sort of, like, going to do the villain reveal at this point. Right. Because she's talking about how, like, she grew up in a medical family and her mom or whoever was a vet, and that one of the saddest things was when an animal had to be put down.
That's not what you want to hear when you're strapped to a table.
Yeah, and so it just rapidly becomes clear that is just what's happening.
Yes.
Like, she's putting Danny down, and Danny gets it and starts to scream, but she's already being drugged. So she's, like, being sedated. Yeah. Rain hears her screaming before she is sedated and is like, I gotta get in there. And so she gets into the ducts again, like she does.
Yeah, Bruce Willis. Yeah.
And so then when Reyes is, like, putting the drugs into the IV and, like, this is gonna be it. Danny's gonna die. And it's good. It's for your own good. You're gonna be fine.
You'll be fine.
And just before the last possible second, Rain drops from above and scratches up her face.
Yes,
and, like, stabs her with something.
Yeah.
It's very violent.
It is. No, it really is.
Very stark.
Yeah,
and
totally
so
weird. That's what I'm saying.
Reyes just bolts. Like, she's in danger now. Yeah. She just leaves.
Yeah.
And Rain, unstraps Danny and tries to make her okay. Meanwhile, probably because Danny is being, like, in duress.
She's still, like,
her power is going again. Like it did, when she was being drugged before. Like, it started to kind of go crazy.
But I think the difference is here, other people's fears are starting to invade everybody's problems.
Right, yeah. So far, it's just been, like...
You're attacked by your own fear.
They're alone in a room, and then something happens. But, you're right. This is when... everybody's fear is all out, going crazy.
Yes.
And the biggest thing is these Smiling Men that just sort of go everywhere.
Yeah.
And are just, like, weird claw people.
Yeah.
And
Sam goes for one with a fire extinguisher pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah. And I like, there's this one, when this kind of first starts, Ileana's freaking out about the Smiling Man in her room. Because that's where it first starts.
Yeah.
And Sam does that classic, like, it's not real, it's just an illusion, it can't hurt you thing.
Right.
Which is funny because, like, they already know that it can, but it's just sort of like a reflex that you would do. Like, this is it's just a dream. If
Yeah.
you don't believe it, it won't be real or whatever. But then he just like emerges out of the room in this way that's just like, oh no.
Yeah, it's real.
That's real.
It's
and
real.
He's got like fangs and stuff.
There was one more sinister reference with the Reyes Wolfsbane attack, because she drops, I don't know if it's like a pendant or whatever it is, but it's got the little Sinister logo on it. And so it like clatters on the ground and you see that.
So anyway, basically all hell is breaking loose.
Yeah.
Like these giant guys are running around and they're all fighting them. And at this one point, Sam is trying to get Illyana to do something and she just disappears. And so he has to deal with it. And then he cannonballs through a whole bunch of them
Which
and like
is
tears
cool.
them to pieces.
Yes, I know. But I mean, it's cool the way he uses his power.
It is
like,
cool.
To see him use the power is cool. And same with Sunspot. We actually see some real Sunspot action
Right,
here
yeah,
where
because
he's using
Sunspot
it.
is once again doing the dishes for
Yes,
whatever
of
reason.
course.
And the smiling man comes up behind him and tries to grab him, and he reflexively just blasts him into the wall with his fire thing.
Yeah, so, I mean, we're escalating. Finally, like, Illyana comes back with the sword and sort of appears out of nowhere and just, like, plows through a million of them.
Yeah, she's, like, zapping around
Yeah,
and,
and
like,
everybody's
appearing in
like,
different places.
and it's a cool
just,
scene.
Like,
It's really cool use of the teleporting powers and the sword. I mean, it's a very cool moment. And then we kind of get everybody's like, okay, let's team up. You know, we finally get our team up moment.
Right. Everybody's used their powers against these things.
Yeah.
Now they're just going to be... They're gonna take care of the situation.
I can't remember who says it, but somebody specifically says, this is not like a training to be X-Men. This is like a killer training place.
Right. They go to Reyes's office. They go to Reyes's office because... No. Okay, so here's what happens.
All right, tell me.
They kill the smiling men, and I think they get all of them. I don't think they come back.
No, they seem to, yeah.
And then they all kind of go to where Rain has Danny and is trying to like help her recover. And then the whole group of them go to Reyes's office.
Okay.
So once they're in there, they're like, this is crazy. Like, we have to get out of here. And Illyana just finds her file randomly and is just like, it's my file.
Yeah, there it is.
And it says that she's a natural killer and that she's a good candidate for their program. And so they're not training them to be X-Men. They're training them to be killers.
Right.
So that's not a fun realization
No.
for them to have. But they decide, okay, we're getting out of here. And so they just like are running down the hall trying to get out of there. And then Dr. Reyes comes over the speaker system and is going back to the way she talked in like group therapy. Like, we're going to talk about responsibility now. And like, you have responsibility. She tries to get them to all go back to their rooms. You can hear the strain in her voice.
Yeah.
Something
Well, she's
like
not in good shape.
Yeah. So she's been very injured by Rain, but is trying to get them to just kind of put themselves in their rooms so that she can move on.
Sam's demanding to know what Essex is, and she just kind of gives him a general, it's a scientific organization founded to save you.
Yes, but they find her.
Okay.
We were just we heard over the speaker.
Okay.
But Rain kind of like sniffs her out and
That's
finds
right,
her.
she does. Yeah.
And so she's sort of like hidden around a corner, and then she reveals herself, and she's very, very injured.
Yes.
And very mad. And yeah, so Sam is asking like, what's going on, who Essex is. And she says, she sort of seems to believe that they're trying to do what's right for them.
Yeah. Well, that's the point I was trying to make in the beginning when we were talking about the characters. Like, she's not really a villainous character in the comic books. And she kind of rides this fine line where it's like she's doing bad things, but she does, I guess that's not uncommon with villains, but she does seem to have at least some buy-in that she's doing the right thing.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I mean,
like when she was talking, when she was talking about putting a rabid animal down, it felt like that really seemed like a correlation to her.
Yeah.
Like this is the same thing. Putting down Danny really is the same thing in her mind as putting down a rabid animal.
Yeah.
So she's yelling at them about escaping, and she's mad, and she has this kind of righteous indignation because she's been trying to help them this whole time. Finally, she blasts her force fields around all of them.
And is like kind of crushing them. They're getting lower and lower.
Yeah, and she does a thing where she sort of captures Cannonball's arm, probably so he can't blast around, I guess. But everybody else is just sort of isolated. But Danny, she's starting to like shrink the
Well, and she's
container.
trying to get everybody to turn on Danny, too. She's trying to, like, get everyone to turn on her specifically.
Yeah, she's like, just as soon as this is done, it's going to be fine. You'll
Right.
all go back to normal. It's fine. Just, you guys are fine. I'm not going to hurt you. We're fine. We just have to kill Danny. That's
Right.
all.
Yeah.
And so she's trying to do that, but the kids are not having that. And so finally, things are escalating as they seem
yes.
to do when
Yeah.
Danny is in distress.
This is another kind of shocking moment.
And all
here.
of a sudden, oh no, you see on the computers while this is happening that there's been a perimeter breach. And that's sort of like your
Yeah.
little hint that
Dun,
something
dun,
is
dun,
coming.
dun, 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 dun.
But then Dr. Reyes is trying to kill Danny, and all of a sudden a giant bear,
Would you say a demon bear?
a giant demon bear,
Okay.
breaks through, just knocks down the wall completely and just eats her. It's a lot of her being aware of what's happening.
Right, of being eaten by a demon bear.
Yes. So she is now eaten and is dead. And so there's sort of a moment of like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
That villain is gone. However, Danny is unconscious. And the demon bear is out of control. And so the demon bear is now after them.
Yeah.
So they run further into the building.
Yeah.
I don't really know why they don't just stay in the building, because he doesn't seem like he's really super able to
No.
get in there. But for whatever reason, they end up outside.
Yeah.
And they have to run to the chapel. And so they're going to go in the chapel and hide in the chapel. And Ileana is just going to take care of this situation. So she just goes full out magic.
Well, it's a cool moment where somebody's like, no, it's magic. And she says, so am I.
Yeah, it is cool.
You know.
And so she opens a portal into Limbo so she can get
Yeah.
into the other place. So
She's
she
this really cool
appears-
moment. Yeah.
she appears on the ground near the bear, and all of a sudden, Lockheed is no longer a puppet.
He's real.
He is a dragon.
He's real.
He's a real dragon. And I don't really know what the deal is there, if that's in her head or if
I
it's
don't either.
real or whatever,
I
but
don't know.
it's cool, whatever
cool.
it is.
But she's walking towards him, and we see the arm power up. We see the sword appear, and she's kind of dragging it behind her, and it leaves it scrapes the ground and leaves a
Yeah.
scratch in it. I thought it was just a really
It's
cool
very
moment.
cool. Yeah. So
She calls the demon bear Yogi.
she calls the demon
So
bear
I
Yogi.
was on board for
Yeah,
that.
she is just very confident.
Yeah.
And really seems like she could just defeat him.
Yeah.
Like for a little while there, the focus just shifts to the other people while Ileana is just fighting with the demon bear
Yeah.
and seeming to do fine in that regard. And then all of the people are trying to figure out what to do. They're hiding in
Yes.
the church. Rain is carrying Danny, just full carrying Danny.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
You don't think so?
I don't. But then she hands her off to Sunspot, and they go into the church. Sam decides he's going to go back and help Ileana, which is kind of funny because what he really ends up doing is distracting the bear. So the bear leaves Ileana and goes to Sam, and Ileana's just like chasing after the bear, being like, "Come back!"
Right.
I feel like she would have just defeated it.
Probably.
But anyway, he just needs to help. And then we are back in the church. They're trying to hide. Rain and Danny are hiding in the confessional.
And at this point, Danny's still pretty unconscious.
And Danny's just out this whole time completely. Sam blasts into the church. He has knocked out a tooth of the demon bear.
Oh, wow.
And Roberto is just hiding under a pew. The demon bear comes in. Ileana comes back and is fighting the bear again. Rain is trying to get to Danny.
Yeah.
And we're sort of seeing what's happening in Danny's mind, that she's
Yeah.
sort of like stuck in some weird
Yeah.
like memory world.
Yeah. Some of it is like the imagery of like what seemed like a snowstorm in the very beginning. She's
Yeah.
kind of back there. There's a moment where she opens her eyes and there's just like dead bodies all around her and stuff. And yeah, and Rain is trying to sort of break through and connect with her and kind of put an end to this.
Right. While she's there, finally Danny starts to sort of hear Wolfsbane, Rain, in her mind, and tries to kind of like find her and
Right.
stuff. And eventually she just sort of like,
Yeah, she finds her way out of this fog.
yeah, and starts to wake up. Finally, Roberto decides that he can
Well,
stand up.
Sam yells and is like, "You need to nut up!" And so we see him
So
go
he
like
goes-
full Sunspot.
Yes. And so he's all gonna help with the bear. it's becoming clear that the bear is now overtaking them. And so
Yeah.
now it's like this
Yeah, they're
thing where they
definitely
keep
losing.
sending like desperate shots
Yeah.
kind of thing. Like, well, now it's
Yep.
my turn and now it's my turn. But no one's really making a dent. So really the thing that they need to do is to get Danny to snap out of it and deal with this bear. So finally, once Rain kind of goes into the thing and now she's, you know,
in trouble.
danger.
Mm-hmm.
So Danny is like, okay, I'm up.
Well, Danny has kind of, at this point, Danny has a vision of her father where he's telling her that she needs to be bigger than the bear.
Right.
And that's sort of the thing that gets her in there. So Danny kind of snaps back into it at that point.
And so now she sort of had this realization, this is the thing. She does a little bit of incorporating the training that they've been doing in like all their little sessions and stuff. She says control, like they were repeating earlier.
Yeah.
And she just walks right up to the bear, and it acts like a wild animal that is being
Yeah, she puts her hand
controlled.
up, and we have sort of a like hand on snout.
Yeah, and so she just talks to it, and it's sort of like she's talking to herself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, it's okay, you don't have to worry anymore, but you have to go to sleep. And eventually she takes the necklace off
Yeah.
and puts it in her pocket, and as she puts it in her pocket, the bear fades away.
When she's standing there and you just see like her back and she's like right up against the bear, the CGI in that looks terrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
But the
terrible.
side shot is pretty good because it's so like the bear is so filmy most of it.
Yeah.
Like you have like the front of the bear and then it's like a smoke
Yeah.
situation, and that kind of works okay.
It does.
But yeah, they do like a really intense, like the bear's face fills the whole frame.
Yeah.
And then she's there.
That looks, I mean, it's like crayons. It's horrible.
Yeah, that's not great.
I don't know why. I don't know how that made it through.
But I like that scene.
I do too. I just think that's a place where the CGI kind of fails them.
Yeah. So now, that's just it.
Yeah.
They're safe now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just, the bear is gone, the lady's gone, and now we're just kind of picking up the pieces. They're standing in the rubble. Danny goes up to Rain and says, thank you for saving me. Basically from herself. And then Rain is like, you saved us. And it's a very cute, nice moment. They're all friends again. Cannonball grabs, he has something in his pocket. It's just like a rock or something. I don't know if it's something that had come up earlier. It's just a thing in his pocket. And he just kind of like Cannonball throws it. And it doesn't hit any barrier. And so they're like, sweet. So they sort of do a little bit of a mimic of the earlier thing with Ileana and Danny about, you know, the nearest thing is 20 miles away. And like, well, let's find out. And like, so then they march off into the distance. And as they're walking away, there's the voiceover.
Or about a different
talking about a bear.
Not the same, not the demon, a different bear.
Not the demon bear. Okay. This is the bear from the beginning.
The original bear.
What if one of them was like a wolf?
Yeah, what if?
Or like a lion?
What if? Yeah.
Anyway, this is a bear, again, and referring to the two bears that she mentioned
either like the good
earlier,
or the bad. Yep.
That it's like a good bear that is all of the, you know, good emotions, and the bad bear that's fed by your fear. And she asked her father when she was a child which one wins, and he said whichever one you feed.
Right.
So it's just a nice little kind of parable thing.
But it is a lot of confusing bear imagery, so I'm glad that you bumped up against that the same as me.
No, I definitely did. I don't understand why they...
Because I don't...
Because it seems like...
You can almost reconcile the two, but you can't.
Like, when she introduces the concept of this bear situation, it just is obvious that it's going to relate directly to this other bear situation. Right. But it does not. No. It's a completely different thing.
No.
They both relate to bears. They
choice.
Both relate to fear. But they are not the same story.
Different.
They are different stories. But anyway, that's how it ends.
Yeah.
Danny has learned something about herself and about the things that she needs to rely on in her life. And everybody is moving on, and they're going to be happy. And that is the end of the movie.
Okay. All right.
So what'd you think?
Like I said in the middle, I mean, I do like the movie. You know, I going through it point by point, I think...
It feels like a mess.
Yes. Yeah. I think going through it the way we did drive home to me just how much of a pass I was willing to give it while watching it.
Yeah.
Recounting the scenes really does show you what a jumble of ideas and like half-finished thoughts the movie actually is.
Yeah.
But I still kind of like it.
I know, that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah.
Like if it's a question of like, do you like the movie? I like the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's possible that it's like among my favorite X-Men movies.
What?
Well, I really like the first one.
Yeah.
And the first one is a very different stylistic
Yeah.
situation from
Yeah.
other ones. I really like Logan, and that's obviously a completely... I think I just really like these weird kind of offbeat things.
Listen, if the Disney merger wouldn't have happened and this was kind of the start of a new phase in X-Men movies, I would be excited about it. I would be excited about New Mutants 2 or seeing whatever they were going to do next.
Yeah.
You know, I wish that they would have put a little bit more care into polishing it. I think, you know, playing up the horror elements that were in there, I think that would have been a really smart move.
Yes.
Like, I understand why they decided to pull it when that was getting the response it was. I think that was even the right move. Had they just done it, you know, I think that really could have made it something
Doesn't
special.
it sort of seem like that just would be someone's job?
To what?
Just like they decide to, they're like, oh, people are really responding to this horror element.
Yeah.
Let's not release it yet.
Yeah.
And let's rework it to really enhance that. At that point, don't you just hand it to someone and say, hey, Janice, can you...
Let's not blame Janice.
Baby.
Let's not blame Janice.
This is your baby. So now we want you to bring out the horror elements. Go.
No, because I think that the scenes aren't shot to make that happen. I think you need complete new scenes to really make that vibe.
Yes, I get that, but I feel like the sense that I get was that someone in an office was just like, we're going to sometime do this, but there was no practical and it will be this person's job to make that happen.
Well, no, I mean, I think typically in movies, like there's a budget in place that includes potential reshoots. You know, I think that in a normal circumstance where you weren't in the process of like, no, these X-Men movies are done, we're in the process of being sold. I think if that wasn't the case, it probably would have happened. There's no reason to think it wouldn't. You know, I think it really was just terrible timing. And then it just got to a point where it was like, we don't care about this. We're not doing this anymore. We have this in the can. Either we just eat it completely or we toss it out there and take whatever coin we get from it. And I think that's what it was. I think that's the whole problem. It just was a victim of this merger.
Yeah. I would have loved to see a whole movie.
I agree. I don't think this is really required. If you're going to watch the X-Men movies, I think this sort of falls in the same place as like the Deadpool movies. Like you don't necessarily have to. But
because they're not X-Men.
No, but I mean, I do think it's worthy of that. You know, personally, if I was gonna, sit down and start rewatching the X-Men movies, I would watch this again.
Oh yeah,
yeah. There are many. I agree with you. There are several X-Men movies that I like less than I liked this. So
yeah, definitely.
With that, I left pretty happy. And when I watched this for the first time, I had incredibly low expectations, and I sort of kept waiting for it to get bad.
That's and
it didn't in the way that I expected it to.
Yeah. Well, that just makes me really wonder about how, what like the finished product would have been, because just the fact that we were as willing as we were to go with it, with as clunky as it is, and like reading through that plot, and like the scenes jumping around. It's just bananas. Yeah. But I was willing, as I was watching it, to be like, okay, because I liked the dynamics of the characters.
I think it's well cast, and I think the performances are good. Yeah.
I think there's just a lot to it that had a lot of potential. I agree. I wonder how good it would have been, I guess, if they had just done anything at all with it.
I agree. Instead of sort of treating it like, we've got this thing we don't care about. Let's just kick it out there. It's unfortunate, but I would have to say that I'm a fan of the movie. I like it.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. I watched it twice, and I watched it twice in a relatively short amount of time, honestly. Even with 2 watches in a matter of months, I was entertained both times.
Yeah, for whatever that's worth.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
Well, we had one response on Twitter when we were asking about people if they liked it or not. At Mark Lehosen said, pretty good, delivered wrong, which
Agree.
kind of fits pretty well with what
Agree.
what we were saying. He says, the film has a great miniseries serial tone to it, like it was hosted on a streaming service.
You know what? That's exactly what I felt like the first time. I felt like, wow, what a good pilot for a show that will never go forward.
Yeah, it does have that. I think part of that is the bottle
True.
feel of it,
Yeah.
that it's a very limited scope.
It is. Yep.
Physically, and so
Yeah.
it does have that kind of like, this would work for TV.
Yeah.
He says the tone doesn't fit in with the other mutant films.
That's
Definitely true.
Yeah.
It may have even become a bit of a cult classic, which I also agree with.
Yeah.
Similar to what happened with Legion, which I haven't seen yet. Good tie-in with Logan too. Yeah, it was a fun, interesting thing. So that's just a...
I still am a little puzzled by the Logan connection there, because when I watched the movie for the first time, and I didn't catch that was a scene specifically from Logan.
Mm-hmm.
Like I hadn't seen Logan recently enough to catch that, and so I saw it in the credits. So I immediately texted Eric Mickles,
Mm-hmm.
co-host of Previously on X-Men. Who else do you text with a question like this? And I was like, what was the scene from Logan? And he told me, and I guess I'm just confused why they would use that scene if it wasn't to make some kind of connection.
It was to make some kind of connection.
Well, yeah, but I guess I don't quite understand what and why.
I think it's just setting up Sinister as a villain for some time in a future movie.
Yeah.
So, like, we know that he has this facility from Logan.
Mm-hmm.
This facility, like, this is sort of like the background view of it.
Yeah.
So we're, like, seeing behind the scenes of this facility.
Mm-hmm.
And then, like, the next movie is him being a villain.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess so.
Anyway, that's the New Mutants movie.
Yes, well, thanks for inviting me along on this ride.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with me about it.
Did you know that right here on the Radio Meanwhile Network, I'm the co-host of 90210 Here We Go?
You know, I did know that.
We looked at all of the episodes of the 90210 franchise. You can find information about that at radiomeanwhile.com. And you can also find all of the back issues of Comic Book Coffee Break right
you
there.
were so ready for
Me
that.
and Eric Mickles.
You just, like, jumped right in.
Yeah.
That was great. So for our next episode, we're going to return to season 2 of the X-Men animated series. This time we're going to be doing the 2-parter Time Fugitives.
Ooh.
Which will
Like
be
Time Bandits?
maybe.
Different? Okay.
I don't know.
All
I
right.
guess we'll see.
All right.
Thank you to Prophetic Music for our theme song. You can find more about this show and others like it at our network's website, radiomeanwhile.com. You can follow us on Twitter at Previously on X. Please rate and subscribe and share this show wherever you get your podcasts. And thanks for listening. Goodbye.
Goodbye.